This is the story of that boy who found himself in the boundless world. Since childhood, he was known for his strength. He was so strong that he defeated every man in his village at arm wrestling, even before he turned 15. But one day, for reasons unknown, he returned to the village injured and suffering from memory loss. It was his good luck that allowed him to meet the good-hearted governor, and he grew up doing odd jobs for him. Most times, he would work nonstop and had to be reminded to rest, but he mostly replied with, "He has just started working and there's no need for concern." But despite this, the governor remains worried. Although Sung Dae-won had lost his memory, his new life with the governor was good. However, the year Sung Dae-won turned 15, the governor passed away suddenly, and even his only family moved away. Heartbroken and alone, he never stopped working hard and promised himself to repay the governor's kindness by living well and working hard. Year by year, working without a moment's pause, Sung Dae-won, who is now 25, had sorted everything out for himself, except for one thing. He hadn't been able to find a wife. Even though there were women who would like to marry him, he didn't see any of them fit to be his wife. His bachelorhood was a product of his inability to judge his own position in society and his unreasonable standards. Sung Dae-won set off to find a suitable wife. He didn't care how far he had to go, even if it meant traveling to another village. Upon deciding to go on this expedition, he found himself face to face with a woman bruised and injured, looking exactly like he had when he first came to the village. That a little later, as she continued walking, she entered the village alone with a sword strapped to her. The villagers avoided her, scared she might be a Murim person. But Sung Dae-won, who had fallen in love with Baek Jin-jin at first sight, proposed to her. That day, she entrusted herself to the house of the widows. They both stared at each other, but Baek Jin-jin rejected his proposal. He asked why, but Baek Jin-jin was set on spending the rest of her life alone and made it clear by rejecting him flatly. However, Sung Dae-won was not one to give up. He continued asking her to marry him. He presented a boar, asking her to become his wife. She rejected. He chased after her, asking her to become his wife. She rejected. He went fishing for her, asking her to become his wife. She rejected and asked him to shut his trap. He followed her through the winter storm, asking her to become his wife. She told him to get lost, and no matter how strong the tree, it could be felled with less than 3 strikes by Sung Dae-won. But Baek Jin-jin remained unmoved, even after being hacked at 10 times, 30 times, which almost made Sung Dae-won lose his mind. In the end, even the villagers came around to try to convince her. One of them told her that they think she has done enough and that she should please just accept Sung Dae-won. Another added that there was no one else like Sung Dae-won in the village. The last one said it was all true because Sung Dae-won is strong, kind, and sincere. This made her think. The villagers begged her to take him before he wore himself out. She thought hard on it. Sung Dae-won was already worn out and had started calling himself absolute trash. Someone worse than trash. He figured he'd probably grow old and die chopping down trees. But then Baek Jin-jin appeared behind him, surprising him. He asked her what she was doing there. She told him that it would be the 120th time if he proposed to her once more, and she said that no matter how half-witted a person is, if they have proposed to you 120 times, you should accept them. Sung Dae-won was still in shock. He wondered if that was what she had been thinking before she came to him. She asked him what he was going to do now. With joy in his eyes, he shouted and proposed once more, asking her to become his wife. Jin-jin accepted, and it became so. After 120 times of proposing marriage, Sung Dae-won was finally able to win her over. After their marriage, Sung Dae-won used the money he had saved up to set up an inn. Time passed, and the first fruit of their love was born, Song Woo Mun. Sung Dae-won and Baek Jin-jin's joy knew no bounds, except that Baek Jin-jin, whose body was already frail, was further weakened by childbirth. The cries of a newborn baby filled their home. After giving birth to their second child, Sung Woo Kong, her weakened body couldn't even handle stepping outside to get fresh air. Sung Dae-won had to spend the money he earned from the inn on medicine for his wife, which made her feel bad, but her husband always assured her that it was all good. With a satisfied look, he told her that it was his responsibility as a man to take care of his wife's medical bills, and that she should just focus on her health. She appreciated him, and he got emotional. While Baek Jin-jin struggled with her illness, their 2 children grew up fast. The first son, Sung Woo Mun, was an exact replica of his mother, with her good looks and well-built body, and he was just as smart too. He would climb trees, making his father worry, but his father would always try to caution him. His only flaw was that he was a cunning and ill-tempered boy. His father asked him to get down from the tree because it was dangerous, but he told his father that it was only dangerous for fat people like him. Song Woo Mun was the kind to not shy away from boldly expressing his opinion. If he disliked something, he had to make it known immediately to feel relief. Inside the inn, Sung Dae-won once complained to his wife that the boy had her looks, but not her personality. She reminded him that even she was like that before she got sick and added, illness really changes a person's personality. Thus, Sung Woo Mun, who was so healthy and strong, grew weak and pale like his mother, his personality fading along with it. His father suspected that he wasn't feeling well, but Woo Mun tried to hide it. His father still wondered how the boy who used to run everywhere had become so weak. This was something he didn't know. The second son, Sung Woo Kong, was the opposite of his brother. He got no good qualities from either of his parents. He was strong and sturdy and could easily make kids 3 to 4 years older than him cry. But unlike his brother, he was very bright. When Woo Mun turned 10 and Woo Kong turned 7, they caught the attention of the Wasan martial artist group that came to stay at the inn. One of the martial artists held Woo Kong and said that he had a great body, and if he received training from their Wasan martial artist group, he could become someone great. This got both Kong and Mun excited because they both thought they would be accepted. Their father also got excited and congratulated his sons, saying that if they could be part of the honorable Murim community, nobody could touch them, that he asked the martial artist if they could really teach his sons. However, they told him that they could not take Woo Mun. Although his eyes shone bright, his body appeared weak, and they said he would collapse within 5 days if they took him along. This left Woo Mun devastated. Even though it was sad news for Sung Dae-won, he also admitted that his child's body had grown weak. The martial artists asked for his permission to take Woo Kong and teach him their ways. Although this was not what any of them had hoped would happen, it was the reality. Nightfall came, and it was time for Sung Woo Kong to leave with the martial artists. He said his goodbyes and promised his brother and father that he would be back soon. They asked him to take care of himself. A sad turn of events, but it was what it was, and Sung Woo Mun was left behind. Although Woo Mun's body grew weaker and he could not play to his heart's desire, not once did he complain or grumble. No matter how well he felt, he would not let his parents know for fear of worrying them. Moreover, he always inquired about his mother's health and worried for her. Although he made an effort to never appear weak, this time, even he found it unbearable. Sung Woo Mun and Sung Woo Kong grew up listening to stories about the Wasan martial artist group and the Murim community. For them, seeing the Wasan group in real life was a rare opportunity. His father, worried about his son, asked him if he was okay. But Woo Mun, in tears, gave a fake laugh and told his father that he was completely fine and needed to go to sleep. That same night, as Woo Kong headed to the Wasan group, Woo Mun sat in his room all alone, crying, asking himself why he was so weak compared to others, why he had to suffer so much, and why he wasn't selected by the Wasan martial artists. The day the Wasan's choice changed the fate of the boys, their mother complained to her husband, telling him that she was still worried because the Murim is not a paradise. It's a cold and dreary place. But he told her to forget it because Woo Kong had already left, and even Woo Mun really wanted to go. There was nothing they could do now. However, she said she was actually more worried about Woo Kong, who had followed them, and also worried for Woo Mun, who was left all alone here because all she wanted was for them to grow up as normal kids. Her husband didn't understand what she meant, so he told her that he would go make something for Woo Mun to eat while asking her to rest, that he walked away, feeling really sad. Downstairs, he noticed a really bright light coming from outside and wondered what it was in the middle of the night. Upon going outside, he was shocked and screamed loudly, startling Woo Mun, who had been crying alone in his room. Woo Mun quickly raised his head and called out to his father, asking what the matter was as he rushed to the window. Upon getting there, he also couldn't believe what he saw. The day the fates of the two children were changed by the choice of the Wasan martial group was also the day when someone came and changed Woo Mun's new destiny. The old man greets Sung Dae-won and Woo Mun, who still can't believe his eyes but just stares. The elderly man, who was once floating, lands on the ground. He walks up to Dae-won and Woo Mun, staring from above. Woo Mun calls the elderly man Shin-sun. Shin-sun means sage with miraculous power. Woo Mun quickly rushes down to meet this Shin-sun, scared to actually come out. He stands behind the door at first. The Shin-sun tells Dae-won that he's starving and must eat, so he asks if they could get him a bowl of plain noodles. Dae-won tells him that he'll get it immediately, so he asks Woo Mun to take the Shin-sun to the best seat in the restaurant. Woo Mun guides the man to his seat. Though he's still a little scared of the Shin-sun's food is presented to him, he thanks them, and they return the pleasantries. While the Shin-sun eats, Woo Mun is fascinated that even great mages eat food. After the sage is done eating, he asks for the bill, But Dae Wong refuses to give him the bill and tells him that it has been an honor to serve him food. He wishes the great sage a safe journey. The sage appreciates the kindness but says that although he is poor, he cannot simply leave like that. So he requests that they prepare him a paper and brush. Dae Wong is surprised at this request and wonders if the sage is going to write something for good luck, so he immediately rushes to get them. On his way, he gets excited because his wife comes to mind, and he plans on asking the sage to write something wishing for his wife's good health and for the health of his entire family too. Woo Mun doesn't stop looking at the sage, so the sage asks him if he looks fascinating to him. Woo Mun apologizes, but the sage proceeds to tell Woo Mun that he sees he really wants to learn martial arts, seeing that he has even wept over it. The boy is shocked and asks the man how he knows. The man smiles at Woo Mun, and just then Dae Wong arrives, presenting the paper and brush. The sage thanks Dae Wong and tells him that he wishes to draw them a landscape painting with his humble skills in exchange for not taking any money from them. Dae Wong, not wanting to seem rude, asks the sage if he really means he's going to give them a painting. The mage sticks the paper to the wall and immediately starts painting. Dae Wong and Woo Mun both watch closely as the sage paints. He starts with an unfamiliar flow, then adds the trees, the landscape, and birds flying in a particular pattern. Woo Mun is stunned because he doesn't see the sage's brush move, but suddenly he sees the landscape appear. He wonders if that's one of the sage's powers, and his father is also awed by the beautiful artwork. The sage adds his finishing touches, and now it's complete. The sage tells them that the painting is a representation of the gratitude he feels toward them and that he hopes they cherish it dearly. He then says he must take his leave. Sung Dae Wong thanks the sage, but instantly remembers that he doesn't know the sage's name. He quickly turns to the sage and asks him to at least tell them his name. The sage laughs without turning back and asks Sung Dae Wong what knowing the name of a forgotten man would do for him. Before leaving, he tells them to remember him as the Celestial Master's thread, and Sung Dae Wong wonders what kind of name that is. While Sung Woo Mun stares deeply into the painting, he suddenly starts to hear a voice from it. The voice says, "Religious enlightenment and righteous duty cannot prove beneficial or harmful to anyone, but they can also prove beneficial and harmful to everyone. Even if one is called omniscient, it cannot be called enlightenment. Even if one is enlightened, they cannot be omniscient. And even if one is omniscient and enlightened, they may still not be called a saint." At this point, Woo Mun realizes that it's the sage's voice. The voice finally says, "The work of this old monk has come to an end." These words, which were only heard by Woo Mun, were said by the Celestial Master's movements, Latsu, in the Tao Te Ching. However, Woo Mun could not understand what a Celestial Master's thread was or know what the Tao Te Ching was, a Taoist movement also known as the Way of the Five Pecks of Rice, or the Way of the Celestial Master. The words by Latsu brought the landscape in Woo Mun's mind to life, and soon he was entranced by the magnificent movement of the painting. There were two kinds of martial arts that one could attain from the painting: the swordsman with angelic and divine help, and the swordsmanship of heaven and earth. They invited Woo Mun into the boundless world. Woo Mun's father could not see the painting come to life or hear the voice of the sage, so he worried for his son as he saw him entranced by the painting. He asked Woo Mun what was wrong, and Woo Mun replied, telling his father that the painting was alive and moving. His father gave Woo Mun a weird look and asked what kind of nonsense that was. The boy smiled with no reply. After that night, years later, Sung Woo Mun, who had spent his time entranced by the painting, grew into a strong young man of 20 years of age. Sung Dae Wong came in unnoticed with a wooden spoon and started hitting Woo Mun, calling him a pathetic kid and asking how many times he needed to hit him before he came to his senses. Woo Mun shouted at his father, telling him that it hurt and asking him to stop, but his father called him an idiot. Woo Mun still got entranced by the painting at the slightest glance, which again provoked his father, who started chasing him around the inn, hitting him. The customers laughed, asking if they had started this again. One of the customers told the father not to overdo it, but he replied that they were only saying that because they didn't know that idiot. Although the painting helped Woo Mun's body get strong, Woo Mun's mind, contrary to his body, had disappeared abruptly, and he had turned into the village idiot. Woo Mun, running through the village, angrily shouted about his father and insisted on seeing the painting, nearly colliding with someone in his haste. The person hit him really hard, calling him an idiot and saying that he was an imbecile for almost hitting their mistress. Woo Mun realized his fault and got scared. He pauses and stares. The men, who are the guards to the mistress, ask Woo Mun what the hell he's looking at, demanding that he get up and lead the way. Woo Mun's eyes and the mistress's clash, and he starts to get an idea in his head, but the guards call him back to his senses, calling him an imbecile and threatening to make an example out of him. The mistress tells the guards to leave Woo Mun alone, saying it's not right to pick on the weak. Woo Mun uses the opportunity to try and run away, but his path is blocked by someone. He is blocked by someone who beats the shit out of him, asking how he dares to do such a thing. The mistress isn't impressed by this person's act. The person smiles at the mistress and greets her, but she sighs and calls him an asshole. He is shocked that she said that, so he asks her what she said, but she denies saying anything, asking him if he heard something. While Woo Mun gets up and dusts himself off, the strange man laughs off what he thought he heard and says that he probably heard wrong. This person continues simping for the lady and tells her that there will be a huge match held in Goryongpyeong in 10 days, and that the entire Murim looks forward to it. He asks the mistress what she thinks about it, but she seems confused and asks him what he means. The mistress's name is Yun Si-hong. He explains, saying Zhang Huang Bek Sangun, one of the greatest warriors in the world, Qian Yupawang, and Guayachengmi Jiangheng, one of the rising 6 great heroes, Shinjinyeg Daecoin, will be there. Moreover, masters who have remained in the shadows for so long are also expected to be present. He asks the mistress if she doesn't think it would be wise to take advantage of the opportunity, but the mistress, Yun Si-hong, tells the guy that she will do whatever she pleases and that he can keep his nose out of her business. She and her guards take their leave, leaving the guy embarrassed. While Woo Mun just stands on the side, senseless, the guy gets furious, but Woo Mun's display catches his eye. He wonders what Woo Mun could be looking at and says that the idiot has really lost his mind. It's dusk already, and back at the inn, Woo Mun's father, while taking reports of sales, notes that the business has suffered a lot of losses. At this rate, he won't be able to cover the cost of medicine for his wife. Thinking hard on it, he worries that if things continue like this, they won't be able to survive the winter, and he gets furious, thinking of it all as he looks at Woo Mun, spaced out, staring at the painting. He calls Woo Mun an idiot, stating that when he was Woo Mun's age, he had already saved up a lot of money. But Woo Mun is so useless. He hasn't helped him one bit. He blames the painting, stating that if it weren't for the painting, the boy might have turned out differently. He initially thought the painting was helping Woo Mun gain his health, but somehow Woo Mun's mind has grown weaker, that he gets up, furious, and says that he must really be cursed to not be able to throw away that painting. Yelling, he calls the sage a conniving old con artist and says he can't take it anymore and will have to burn the painting. Upon hearing this, Woo Mun gets scared and immediately turns to his father, pushed his father away from the painting while shouting in protest. But his father still tries hard to get to the painting, telling Woo Mun to let go of him, calling him an idiot, and shouting that he's going to burn the painting. Woo Mun keeps pushing him back while his father asks him to let go, but Woo Mun doesn't, telling him that he can't because the painting isn't his. Woo Mun tightens his grip and pushes his father further away from the painting, which makes his father wonder how Woo Mun got so strong. He rapidly taps Woo Mun's back, telling him to let go or he'll die because Woo Mun's grip is too tight and is choking him. Woo Mun quickly lets go of his father and rushes to get the painting, telling his father that he can't touch it. The father, out of breath, expresses frustration with this foolish idiot and that cursed painting. Their argument is interrupted by some customers who ask if they are closed for the day. Sung Dae-won tells them that they are still open and asks them to please come in. He gives Woo Mun a furious side-eye and tells him that he'll deal with him later. A female customer tries to hold in her laughter. Dae-won attends to the customers, while Woo Mun goes back to being entranced by the painting. Dae-won takes the customer's order. As he goes to prepare it, the older man starts scolding the girl, whose name is Dua, asking if she hasn't outgrown that silly habit and what people will think if she laughs like that. She apologizes to him, but asks what she's supposed to do if the situation is funny, telling him that she also caught him laughing a little. He laughs and remarks he can't win against her. The man's name is Shang Mu-jin, and he's the girl's martial arts master. Dua asks Mu-jin what he thinks the boy is gazing at so intensely. He wonders too, gazing at the image himself. He notices something and gets a closer look. Upon getting there, he observes something about the painting and expresses admiration for the effective use of classical techniques in the painting, even though he can't identify the artist. They both get spaced out staring at the image. Dua calls to her master, asking him what he's doing and reminding him that the food has been served, so he should come eat. Mu-jin admits he's feeling a bit distracted. Mu-jin walks away. Dae-won comes in with a package for Woo Mun, calling him a scoundrel and asking him to deliver the package to the Manga family. He tells him to be sure to thank them because it was supposed to be sent a day before. Woo Mun refuses to go, telling his father that he knows if he leaves, his father will throw away the painting. But his father assures him that he won't and asks him to go quickly. Woo Mun receives the package and asks his father to promise not to throw away the painting. Even though his father doesn't want to, he promises and asks Woo Mun to go quickly. Woo Mun rushes out really fast, saying that he'll be back soon, and slams the door shut. The effect of the painting is now in Moojin's head. He can't stop thinking about it because he finds it strange that it keeps bothering him. Dua notices the expression on Moojin's face and asks him what he's thinking about so deeply, telling him that he is not even replying when she calls him. He suddenly gets up and walks towards the painting, continuing to stare and getting spaced out again. He takes a deep breath to calm himself and again goes back to glaring. Finally, the painting shows him some surreal energy. Just as he has thought, it's not an ordinary painting. It's only a picture, yet he wonders how it has such strong, surreal energy. The birds come to life and are flying around in the painting, and the waterfall begins to rush. Master Taishang Moojin gets lost in the painting, and it's as if he is inside it. He is wowed by this and says that this painting is a treasure, an exquisite thing possibly worth millions. Dua looks confused and asks why Moojin is acting like that. Moojin quickly calls Dae Wong, asking him if he could sell him the painting. Dae Wong is confused and asks Moojin if he actually wants him to sell it. Moojin says yes, and that he will pay whatever amount Dae Wong asks. Dae Wong can't believe what he just heard because his family is going through such a hard time, and this strange man is not only telling him that he can get money, but also get rid of that loathsome painting. Woo Mun, rushing to deliver the package, is excited that he'll get back home quickly and continue to look at the painting. Dae Wong finally decides to sell the painting, so he asks for 5 niang. Moojin is surprised that Dae Wong asks for only 5 niang, but Dae Wong thinks he went overboard and asked for too much. Moojin, knowing the true worth of the painting, immediately gives Dae Wong the 5 niang. An ignorant Dae Wong thanks him. He's filled with joy because with this money he could buy the best medicine for his wife, although he does feel bad for Woo Mun. Moojin and Dua are done with their meal, and they say their goodbyes. Moojin pauses, feeling bad. Dua asks him what the matter is, and he goes back to meet Dae Wong, telling him that the money he paid for the painting won't do and that he underpaid him. He offers his sword to Dae Wong, but Dua strongly disagrees, shouting and asking him how he could give away the piercing white divine sword. Master Taishang Moojin gives the sword to Dae Wong and calmly tells her to hush, but she still tells him that it doesn't make sense, asking him if he's really going to give away the divine sword for that shabby painting. Dae Wong, Woo Mun's father, accepts the sword in gratitude, saying that he doesn't completely understand its importance but will accept it gracefully. From Dae Wong's reaction, he knows that it must really be a great sword, so he wonders how much he can sell it for. They take their leave, wishing him goodbye, and he does the same, wishing them a safe journey. Woo Mun is back and shouts loudly, asking where his painting is. His father tries to act like he doesn't know what's up and also joins in looking for it, asking where it went and if someone stole it. Woo Mun doesn't believe that his dad had nothing to do with the disappearance of the painting, so he asks his father if he burned it. His father denies this claim and asks how he dares accuse him of burning it. Woo Mun expresses disbelief, asking if it was sold. His father still denies it. Woo Mun looks around and sees the sword that was given to his father. He grabs it and shouts in his father's face, asking him to give him the money, saying that he knows the buyer must have also given him some money. His father refuses, telling him that he doesn't know how bad things have been and that it has been really difficult to get by. But Woo Mun doesn't care about that. Instead, he threatens his father that he will tell his mother that he lied to him and sold the painting. The father shouts no, remembering when his wife told him that lies are unforgivable, death being the only remedy for liars. Woo Mun asks him if he should report it. His father deliberates on it, calling Woo Mun an imbecile, but gives the money, stating, "Here you go. You want to rat me out to your mother, you disgraceful idiot." Woo Mun asks him when those people left, and he says that it was a while ago. Woo Mun shouts about his painting and sprints out of the inn. Dae Wong says that he can't believe Woo Mun would go that far, concluding that Woo Mun must have really lost his sanity entirely. While Woo Mun runs, it annoys him that the old man bought his painting for such a puny sum. He thinks that if the man was that kind of murim, then surely he must be going to Goryeo. The anger and eagerness to get back his painting make him run faster than a normal human, but he doesn't know it. He promises, "Just wait and see." Moojin and Dua walk, and Dua asks him why he's walking so fast, asking if he's that excited about the painting. Moojin tells her that he didn't realize and expresses his enthusiasm for researching the painting, saying his excitement is limitless. Dua tells him that that useless son seemed to really like this painting. She smiles and asks him if the son won't make an incredible fuss when he comes back. Mujin remembers the child and feels bad, saying to her that he completely forgot about the child because, in a way, the painting's real owner is that child that a really loud roar is heard. Stop right there. This roar is so disturbing that it disrupts Dua's ears. But because Mujin is an experienced martial master, he isn't affected that he looks back and asks who it is. It's Woo Mun, running towards them, shouting that the painting is his. Still with the roar, Mujin sees how badly it's affecting Dua. He angrily calls Woo Mun a scoundrel and demands he stop that right now. His roar comes as a straight wave and almost blasts Woo Mun off his feet, but Woo Mun manages to stand and still rushes towards them, telling them that the painting is his. Mujin is surprised at what just happened because, from Woo Mun's appearance, he would never have imagined that he received any training in martial arts. The fact that Woo Mun was able to run all the way here in a single breath, and that roaring, although it had no effect on him, was powerful enough to hurt Dua, impresses Mujin. Woo Mun goes down on his knee, begging them to give back the painting, stating that it is more important to him than anything in this life. Mujin is shocked to hear this, wondering if Woo Mun comprehends the true value of the painting. With no response from Mujin and Dua, Woo Mun gets back up and shouts at them, demanding they give it back this instant. Dua is offended by the way he spoke to them and asks how he dares speak so arrogantly. Mujin is still amazed by everything the boy has done so far, but decides to play along. He tells Woo Mun that he has already bought the painting, asking what right he has to ask him for it. Woo Mun pauses, not expecting this. Mujin looks at Woo Mun, seeing that he has the sword and the money he gave Woo Mun's father. It is unquestionable that the painting belongs to Woo Mun, and since he hasn't paid a reasonable amount to its true owner, it would be best to just return it to him. Woo Mun murmurs repeatedly about the painting, but Mujin is becoming curious about him. Mujin states that Woo Mun seemed to have let out that roar earlier without realizing it. It was a powerful roar, and he smiles, thinking there seems to be a secret hidden in Woo Mun and the painting. Quite unlike him, he starts coming up with a plan. Even though he has decided to give back the painting, Woo Mun is confused, thinking about it. He remembers that the sage had actually drawn it for his father's services, so technically it isn't his, adding that he has just been claiming it stubbornly all this time. Mujin's plan is complete, so he tells Woo Mun that, according to his father, their family seems to be going through a hard time, that he asks if Woo Mun realizes that it's true. Remembering his mother's medical bills, Woo Mun feels really bad that he didn't even think about it, saying to himself that he's so stupid. He tries to pull himself together, realizing that his father must have thought about their mother's medical bills. Disappointed in himself, he calls himself an idiot for forgetting about everything as usual. Tears drop down his eyes, and he says that he's sorry, telling Mujin to please hold on to the painting. Mujin is wowed once more, because for someone who caused such a ruckus to give up easily just at the mention of his family shows that his heart must be in the right place. Woo Mun feels so sad about the whole thing and is about to take his leave, but Mujin smiles and tells Woo Mun that they will have to play a game. If Woo Mun can lay a finger on him even once, then he shall not only return the painting to him, but he would also yield the money to him. He asks Woo Mun how that sounds. Dua disagrees, asking Mujin why he would want that. Woo Mun is surprised because he sees this as an opportunity. He immediately asks Martial Master Mujin if he's being serious. Mujin gives a weird smile and tells Woo Mun that he has a lot of wealth and that the money for his family means nothing to him. So he asks Woo Mun if he would accept. Woo Mun happily agrees. Woo Mun is confident that he could win the money for his mother's medicine and the painting. Kunlun's #1 swordsman, Mujin Won Myong, is known for being a great master. The person currently overlooking the field is, in fact, the greatest master of Kunlun, Mujin Won Myong himself. Woo Mun asks Mujin if he won't regret this, asking if he would really give everything as promised if he manages to touch him. Mujin laughs at Woo Mun and asks him why he would regret challenging him, encouraging him to try and make himself regret it. Woo Mun feels pumped because if he wins this, he could get the painting and money for his mother's medicine. Mujin pulls out the painting, and Woo Mun immediately goes to him, but Mujin easily dodges. Woo Mun tries really hard, and Mujin is surprised by Woo Mun's awful attempts because his body structure is that of someone who has never been taught martial arts. Mujin then stretches his hand to push Woo Mun. That slight push is enough to make him fall, but he gets back up and rushes in again, trying to touch Mujin that he tries really hard, but Mujin, a martial master, dodges everything with ease. He slams Woo Mun onto the ground. Woo Mun is surprised and asks Mujin how he was able to slam him to the ground without even laying a finger on him. He gets back on his feet and promises that this time he will definitely get Mujin. Mujin easily dodges Woo Mun's attempts each time. Whenever Woo Mun tries to touch him, Mujin slams him to the ground over and over again. Even though Woo Mun could have stopped at any time, he keeps going and continues to get slammed down. Finally, Woo Mun decides to calm down due to the pain from being repeatedly thrown to the ground. Mujin is disappointed and wonders if Woo Mun's roar from before was just an accident. He feels pity for Woo Mun and tells him that he should just give up. But Woo Mun is determined and says to himself that he cannot give up, that he thinks for a while and realizes that he can now see Mujin's movements, even though they may be subtle. He adds that the movements are similar to the movements of the leaves in the painting. If they are indeed similar, then he has seen them a million times already. He rushes in again, motivating himself that there's nothing he can't do. With disappointment in Mujin's eyes, he calmly observes that Woo Mun has resorted to his tactless moves again. However, Woo Mun comes attacking with an aggressive martial arts form, which scares Mujin. Instinctively, he uses a powerful martial art to block Woo Mun's attack, but it's powerful enough to knock Woo Mun straight into a tree. Seeing the force at which Woo Mun hits the tree, Dua asks if Mujin isn't overdoing it. Even though she's angry that Woo Mun hurt her ear, she tells Mujin that he is being too harsh on someone who doesn't even know martial arts. Mujin is speechless because he just used the royal servant's golden dragon power on Woo Mun, wondering if Woo Mun has grasped his movements in such a short time. In a moment of haste, he unintentionally used more force than he intended. Woo Mun picks up a stick, gets back on his feet, and says that his arms were too short. If he had a sword in his hand at that moment, he would have been able to touch Mujin. He notes that Mujin's movements are greater than those of the leaves in the painting, wondering if he would be able to touch Mujin with the stick. With determination, he goes to attack Mujin again, promising to touch him this time. Mujin is shocked, looking at Woo Mun come at him, wondering what this is. He states that the energy he used to block Woo Mun's attack earlier blocked Woo Mun's acupuncture points, but Woo Mun has already unblocked them. He wonders if Woo Mun has been hiding his endurance and energy unbeknownst to him. Woo Mun comes at him, about to strike Mujin. Mujin is shocked by Woo Mun's power, calling him a monster. Woo Mun's attack is about hitting Mujin. He realizes that he cannot dodge and that it's going to cut through. Woo Mun's attack hits Mujin, and the stick breaks in his hand, which makes Mujin instinctively use more power than intended to push Woo Mun backward, sending him flying across the field once again. Mujin can't believe what just happened. Dua rushes to him, calling him grandfather. Mujin says he sees that in a hurry, and Woo Mun ended up using Amida Buddha's most excellent power technique. Dua rushes to attend to Mujin's wounds and asks how that guy was able to do that, but Woo Mun screams in pain, blood rushing out from various parts of his body, as if he were punctured all over, shouting that it hurts and that he is in so much pain. Mujin rushes to Woo Mun, thinking of what to do. He wonders if Woo Mun's body has collapsed into a near comatose state induced by martial arts. While Woo Mun keeps shouting that it hurts, still trying to help him, Mujin finally understands that, without realizing it, Woo Mun has learned martial arts through the painting. However, Woo Mun's body remains untrained and thus cannot endure Mujin's attack. Woo Mun, in serious pain, cries for help and begs Mujin to save him. Mujin doesn't know what to do because Woo Mun's body is dying. It seems to be unable to overcome the attack and is deteriorating. Mujin pulls Woo Mun up suddenly and sits him in the lotus position, immediately mimicking the Buddha's cross-legged sitting position. Mujin performs some key-opening techniques on Woo Mun and tells Dua that for at least 1 hour, she must stand guard more rigorously than she ever has before and that nobody should touch him. She understands, knowing that when one's body continues to deteriorate, the situation is dire. Woo Mun opens his mouth wide and spits a large amount of blood. Mujin tells him that if he wants to leave, then he must pay attention to what he wants to say. Mujin instructs Woo Mun that he cannot open his mouth at any cost, no matter how much it hurts, telling him that his life is on the line here. Woo Mun is about to spit out more blood, but he holds it back. Mujin starts to chant some words as he connects to Woo Mun's body, that he realizes that Woo Mun's body has already been severely damaged. But if he can put all of his energy into Woo Mun, he can save him. However, Mujin warns that if he does save Woo Mun, he will never be able to summon the energy and force required for martial arts. He blames himself because his petty curiosity led to all of this, but he promises that no matter what, he shall save Woo Mun. Meanwhile, Woo Mun begins to cry as he thinks of his mother and father. Mujin has begun pouring his energy into Woo Mun. Dua looks around, recalling that they are on the road to Goryongpyeong. People who harbor animosity toward Mujin would definitely pass this way. She wonders what would happen if they ran into such people at a time like this. She tries to hold herself together, knowing she'll be powerless in front of them that moment. she hears the rustling of the bushes. The people behind say they're pleased with what they see, thankful for having followed Mujin and Dua. Dua turns back and shouts, "Who is that?" One of the men in the bushes replies, "Mujin Woo Myong of Kunlun. We have finally come to the moment of your reckoning." Another one says they have come to take their revenge, and they all laugh. Dua realizes who they are, the evil, raucous, and corrupt four. She also realizes that she and her grandpa have been tailed by them all this while. She questions if this is what people mean when they say, "out of the frying pan, into the fire," because she knows she won't be able to hold them off alone. Mujin is unaware of what's happening around him as he continues Woo Mun's treatment. Dua whimpers, wondering what she's supposed to do without her grandpa. She summons some courage and shouts at the men, "How dare you appear in front of Master Tai Shang Mujin?" They laugh at her, asking if she thinks they are fools, saying even a child could kill Mujin in his current state. One of the four says soon the news of Mujin's death will spread far and wide, laughing as he adds that he should also play with Dua a little, so that even after death, Kunlun's #1 swordsman would cry tears of blood due to humiliation. Dua gets scared and moves backward, telling them they shouldn't dare come near her. The man and the others laugh, telling her she looks cute when she's scared. One of them shouts, "Kill Mujin." Dua is terrified and doesn't know what to do, thinking of her grandfather. But at that moment, someone arrives and knocks the man's sword away, surprising everyone. Dua is relieved, but still wonders who this person is. The raucous four get angry that someone would dare interfere. The spear-wielding person tells them that as if it's not bad enough they are attacking someone in critical condition, now they are ganging up on a girl. He tells them they're the lowest of vermin. This provokes the raucous four, and they decide to go after the spear man altogether. As they rush toward him, he uses his technique to cut down all of their swords in half. The raucous four is terrified, wondering what just happened. The spearman, positioned to attack, calls them pathetic scoundrels and says they lack even the ability to judge their opponent correctly at that moment. Even Dua realizes he's a martial arts master. While all this is happening, Master Mujin senses something strange from Woo Mun's body. A strange suction force is formed inside Woo Mun, sucking Mujin's energy rapidly. Mujin wonders what on earth this is. Woo Mun sits, absorbing Mujin's energy, and as he focuses, he finds himself in a strange place. At first, he wonders what's happening, but realizes this is inside his body. He can see that his body is disintegrating, with blood vessels bursting. Noticing strange energy on his hands, he questions if it's the energy he's getting from Mujin. Then, he sees lines from a landscape painting. Realizing they are trying to guide him, he thinks that if he uses the lines from the painting along with Mujin's energy, he should be able to fix his body. In that moment, without realizing it, Woo Mun takes the teachings of the landscape painting and restructures his body. Although it feels like an eternity has passed, it's only a moment. Guided by instinct, he remains unaware of the transformation his body will soon undergo because of his willpower. Woo Mun has sucked too much of Mujin's energy, causing Mujin to cough up blood and plop down to the ground. He tries to gather himself, wondering what just happened and who this child is. He catches the smell of blood and quickly turns around to search for Dua. He sees that she's okay, but notes that the raucous four is still present, wondering if they had been following him. He still can't wrap his head around how Dua managed to defeat them all by herself. Dua hugs him, telling him it was really bad and that she almost died. Mujin asks if someone helped her, inquiring if it was one of the greatest warriors in the world or one of the rising 6 great heroes. She explains that someone with a spear suddenly showed up to help her, before leaving just as quickly. She asked his name, which he paused to tell her, Jiang Hung. Mujin pauses, picturing the man in his head. He calls out the man's full name, Guayachengmi Jiang Hung, realizing who it was. He says he is greatly indebted to Jiang Hung, smiles, and tells Dua that it's their good fortune. He laughs, wondering if they do not owe this good fortune to this child. Mujin barely managed to save Woo Mun and spent a third of his ki energy. Yet, in the ebb and flow of the tide, he learns something important. Dua distracts Mujin's thoughts, asking him why the boy is not waking up, questioning if he has died. He smiles at her and tells her that the boy will wake up soon. Woo Mun takes a deep breath and breathes out heavily, stating he is alive, as he gets back on his feet. He expresses that he thinks he understands now. All this while, he had only vaguely wondered if what he was learning from being entranced by the painting was, in fact, martial arts. It seems he was correct. Standing fully on his feet, he explains that the thing he released back there was his inner energy and force. Looking towards Mujin, he states that the person who helped him do that was the old man. Dua is stunned, saying that Woo Mun seems fine. Moreover, She notes that he also seems changed. Woo Mun approaches Mujin and bows his head, thanking him for saving his life. Mujin apologizes, telling Woo Mun that he didn't think something like this could happen. He proceeds to explain that he had already resolved to give back the painting and the money, but to satisfy his curiosity, that's why he decided to test him. He apologizes once more, saying he's sorry, but Woo Mun tells him not to apologize, expressing only gratitude towards him. Mujin asks Dua how much they have left, but Dua doesn't like where this is going. She asks him what he means by, "How much do we have left?" And he tells her that when they get back, he will go through the account carefully. He gives back the painting and the money to Woo Mun, telling him that he doesn't need to return the money and asking him to take it along with the rest and go. Woo Mun tries to decline, saying that he can't do that because he feels he is the one who should be in debt to Mujin for saving his life. Even his body feels healthier. He tells Mujin that this is too much, but Mujin insists that as a Jeonpa warrior who has abandoned worldly desires, he did not conduct himself properly. He tells Woo Mun that even this falls short of the compensation he truly owes him. Mujin urges Woo Mun not to reject it but to accept it, explaining that these things are more needed by him than someone who has abandoned this material life. Woo Mun thinks it doesn't feel right, but he must consider his mother, so he accepts the extra money, promising to use it wisely. He tells Mujin that he will use it to buy medicine for his mother and says thank you. Mujin smiles at Woo Mun, acknowledging that it's a complete transformation. He has become an entirely new person. Perhaps he could even go on to exceed Mujin's expectations. Woo Mun notices the people lying dead on the ground. Mujin tells him that they are people who sought revenge against him. They were looking for a chance to attack, but apparently, Gwaechemi Jyeonghung took care of them. Woo Mun is surprised to hear this name, as Gwaechemi Jyeonghung is the one who will participate in the competition in Goryongpyeong. He tells Mujin that they owe their lives to that great man today. Mujin replies that it's not something for Woo Mun to concern himself with, saying this happened because of him, and he is the one who owes Woo Mun. As he hands over the painting, he asks Woo Mun who on earth drew it. Woo Mun smiles and says that it's a mystery to him as well, but he tells Mujin that the person who drew it, before departing, said he was the Celestial Master's thread. Mujin is amazed to hear this, and asks Woo Mun if he means what he just said, a thread of such a being. He wonders if that's why it happened. It all makes sense now. From his reaction, Woo Mun asks if Mujin knows who that is, expressing that he would be grateful if Mujin could tell him too. Mujin calls him child and asks if he knows about Taoism. Woo Mun thinks on it and says that he only knows it's something monks study and pursue. Mujin acknowledges he doesn't know much about the painting, but offers to share what he does know. He explains that during the Three Kingdoms of Korea period, 57 BC to 668 AD, the turmoil caused by the Yellow Turban Rebellion was led by Zhang Ju, who was said to be a follower of Taoism and a sorcerer. Zhang Ju spearheaded the way of great peace, tapping down the Taoist movement, but alongside that, another Taoist movement was growing popular, the way of the Five Peaks of Rice, also known as the Celestial Masters. The man who led this movement, Celestial Master Zhang, was Zhang Ling. Woo Mun is amazed by this and says if it was someone called Zhang Cheon-sa. Then Mujin confirms it, stating that the way of the Five Peaks of Rice is also known as the Cheon-sa sect. The Celestial Master's thread that the sage mentioned must definitely refer to the Cheon-sa sect in the way of the Five Peaks of Rice. Woo Mun stares at the painting, wondering about the Cheon-sa sect. Mujin tells Woo Mun that the martial arts teachings of the Cheon-sa sect died with the last follower of Zhang Cheon-sa, and after that, the teachings were passed down orally under the title of Kyeonsa-do. That is how they exist today. Mujin smiles and tells Woo Mun that it's an astonishing feat for him to have learned the now extinct martial arts of the Cheon-sa sect. Woo Mun then asks Mujin if he might know who drew the painting. Mujin says that itself is also a mystery, even to him, but smiles as he adds that they can only guess that the person was one who wished to pass on the teachings of Cheon-sa. He concludes that he now understands how Woo Mun's body absorbed his energy so easily, explaining that it's because of the energy that forms the root of Taoism, which is the energy of the Cheon-sa sect. Finally, he says that it still baffles him. While Woo Mun continues to stare at the painting, pondering the Cheon-sa sect, Mujin feels tempted. If he takes Woo Mun under his wing, he could bring fame to the Kunlun faction. However, he knows that taking someone with the Cheon-sa sect martial arts will surely draw opposition. Shaking his head, Mujin is disappointed in himself for letting his greed outweigh everything else. He decides that if it's meant to be, he will consider it again in the future. But for now, he can only offer his meager help. So he calls out to Woo Mun and reflects on a previous duel, acknowledging Woo Mun's skills in swordsmanship and energy manipulation. However, he points out a gap in Woo Mun's training, specifically his footwork, suggesting that despite his abilities, there's still important foundational knowledge to acquire for improvement. Woo Mun curiously asks Mujin what footwork is. Mujin feels disappointed that Woo Mun doesn't even know what footwork means. Woo Mun replies that he doesn't know what it means, a disappointed look on his face, and asks if he has just been defeated by someone who doesn't even know what footwork is. However, Mujin decides to teach Woo Mun. He demonstrates, telling him that footwork refers to the way one moves their feet while dueling someone. It includes all movements such as approaching, moving, circling, and more. He informs Woo Mun that he shall teach him one such movement as an expression of repentance. Woo Mun is excited to learn. Meanwhile, in a house, someone shouts, asking a man what he means by saying they are short of men. The man tells the lady that if she does not want to be slighted compared to the other families, she should consider their interests and supply them with men. He also tells her that for that to happen, she would have to at least give them 50 warriors. But for now, they have barely managed to gather 30, that the lady thinks on this and tells the man that it would be favorable for them to display a strong front. She asks him to put up notices around their village and the nearby ones that they are recruiting temporary workers to send to Seoul for work. She adds that they're on a tight schedule, so he needs to hurry and do this. However, the man tells her that they do not need workers. They need warriors. The lady looks back at the man and calls him Commander Jang, asking if their purpose is to fight. He responds, telling her no. Then she says that all they need is to hire people to look like they're warriors, and she and the commander will be fine if they command the workers to pretend to be warriors. She adds that if they appear to have a massive force, no one would dare challenge them, and they will be fine. Commander Jang says that he understands and tells her he shall do as she has commanded, although she thinks that if there is one useful man among the workers, it would work out. Back with Woo Mun, he is sweating profusely and feeling exhausted while Mujin performs some footwork on a huge rock. Mujin's movements are too fast. Woo Mun cannot see what he is doing. He states that he can't see Mujin clearly and won't learn anything like this. He thinks this won't do because he really wants to learn. Gathering ki from around his body, he directs it to his eyes, and suddenly he can clearly see Mujin's movements. He is glad that he can finally see, although it does get blurry constantly. If he focuses his mind and directs his spirit towards his eyes, he can maintain clarity. Mujin is performing divine and ethereal captivating movement footwork, which is considered one of the best inside the Kunlun sect. It possesses astonishing power to render the user's vision blurry and captivate them. It is one of the hardest footwork techniques to learn. Woo Mun instinctually directs the energy of the celestial and divine swordsmanship towards his eyes and narrowly manages to see Mujin's movements. Finally, as Mujin completes the last step, he asks Woo Mun if he memorized it well. He tells him that he has left his footprints on the rock so that Woo Mun can refer to them later to memorize his movements. Woo Mun thanks him. Mujin takes the sword and gives Woo Mun the Kunlun Friendship Medallion, telling Dua that they must wish him farewell now. However, Dua doesn't seem to approve of Mujin, giving Woo Mun the medallion. Mujin tells Woo Mun that this is the piercing white divine sword, used by the Bond faction's Emperor Wang Yongyang, and it is priceless. He adds that he was planning on giving it to him in exchange for his painting, but now he doesn't have any other means to defend himself and must take it with him. Instead, he gives Woo Mun the medallion and urges him to use it wisely when the time arises. Woo Mun replies that if that's the case, he shall not refuse the kind offer, but asks what it is. Mujin tells him that the medallion shows that he is a friend of the Kunlun sect, but advises him not to worry about it too much. While Dua is still very displeased with this, she tells Woo Mun that the friendship medallion is more important than he knows. Before leaving, Mujin asks Woo Mun to promise him one thing: to never sell nor throw away the Kunlun friendship medallion. He tells Woo Mun that even though it's the last remaining medallion, he does not regret giving it to him. Woo Mun bows his head and promises, stating that if he gets a chance, he will visit Kunlun. Mujin tells him, so be it, and says that they shall continue their journey now. Woo Mun wishes them a safe journey to walk away. Dua looks back at Woo Mun, who still bows his head as they depart. Dua turns away, but keeps looking back at Woo Mun, unable to predict that today, which felt both short and long at the same time, would bring such unprecedented change in Woo Mun's life. Dua finds herself blushing while staring at Woo Mun, so she quickly turns away, surprised by her own feelings. Woo Mun returns home to his father, presenting the money to him, which surprises his father, especially since Woo Mun also got the painting back. His father asks where he got the money from. While handing back the painting, Woo Mun tells his dad that it seems things turned out well, explaining that he got the painting and the money back from Mujin. His father responds with a simple yeah, but then turns back to his dad, calmly telling him that it was wrong to have sold the painting without his knowledge. He warns his dad that if he deceives him again, he will tell his mother. The father agrees but wonders what's wrong with Woo Mun, noticing he seems different and speaks differently, questioning if Woo Mun has regained his mental capacity. Woo Mun puts a chair in front of the painting, sits on it, and once again begins to stare at it. He declares that he shall go back inside the painting's fantasy once again because he wants to meet the lines that guided him from inside his body before. As Woo Mun sits and stares at the painting, his father wonders if he is going back to his old ways and stays to observe. Woo Mun unexpectedly shouts, "This is not working," startling his father, who wonders what's wrong. Woo Mun doesn't know why he is unable to get back into the fantasy. He thinks it might be because a lot of things happened today, so he decides to get some sleep and try again tomorrow. In the morning at the inn, Woo Mun is back at the painting, staring, but it's still not working. By the afternoon, Woo Mun is still staring at the painting and is still unable to get back into the fantasy. As night falls, he continues to struggle with it. His father walks by and isn't surprised that Woo Mun hasn't changed. 4 days later, Woo Mun is begging the painting to please work while his father looks increasingly frustrated. Dae-won can't take it anymore. He shouts at Woo Mun, telling him he doesn't care if he broke his promise or if Woo Mun tells on him to his mother. He asks Woo Mun to stop this immediately. He expresses anger and frustration, feeling that Woo Mun has worsened instead of improved, and contemplates destroying a painting for their own good. Woo Mun feels sad as he realizes that he has been useless. He holds his father's hand and asks for forgiveness. Woo Mun acknowledges his selfishness and promises not to revert to his old ways. Dae-won, surprised, asks if he's serious, and Woo Mun apologizes again. Dae-won looks at Woo Mun with many emotions swirling inside him, while Woo Mun appears remorseful, realizing that the illusion has vanished completely. For his parents' sake, he knows he has to give this up and forget about it. Suddenly, Dae-won starts to cry. Woo Mun asks his father why he is crying. Dae-won tells Woo Mun that he is crying because it has been a long time since Woo Mun said something befitting his age, and he continues crying. Woo Mun thinks about what his father said and fears that he may have been entranced by the painting, living his life like a fool, all this while without realizing the effect it had on his parents. He acknowledges that he has not been a good son, so he tells his father that he's sorry and that he shall live well from now on. These words make his father even more emotional, causing him to cry more. Later that night, Woo Mun smiles as he checks on his father, who lies on his bed sobbing, says, "Our Woo Mun has come back to us." After confirming that his father has gone to bed, Woo Mun returns to face the painting and tries once more to see if he can get back into the fantasy illusion. He closes his eyes and focuses. Everywhere goes dark, and he can see the sage standing behind a lady, apologizing for not being able to keep his promise. The sage says, "The Taeyong-jiki is something one cannot overcome." Taeyong-jiki is a condition where the body is overwhelmed with energy or fire. A person afflicted with Taeyong-jiki is expected to die within 7 years. Woo Mun doesn't understand what's going on. He looks around and wonders where he is. He also recognizes the sage. The sage asks Woo Mun how he is doing, asking if a person is sick. Woo Mun doesn't understand, so he asks the sage if he's referring to himself. The sage then tells Woo Mun that his personal desire to fix the Taeyong-jiki led to his Xian deteriorating, an ability to ascend to immortality. The sage begins to explain, saying that Taeyong-jiki refers to a person born with exceptionally strong and violent energy. The person suffers from an imbalance of yin and yang and is extremely weak, eventually dying when they turn 20. That Woo Mun exclaims, "No," but the sage continues. He tells Woo Mun that Taeyong-jiki is a rare disease that affects 1 in 100 people, so rare that many don't even know what it means. Woo Mun asks if that means those kids are affected by Taeyong-jiki. The sage confirms this, explaining that for the past 200 years, he has been studying the disease and trying to save these kids, but his efforts have been unsuccessful. The sage shows Woo Mun his body standing in front of the painting. Woo Mun shouts, asking if that's himself. The sage responds by asking if he would like to see inside his body. Woo Mun shouts again as he is taken inside his body. The sage tells Woo Mun that the celestial and divine swordsmanship, which brings eternal harmony, is the swordsmanship of heaven and earth, containing the logic of all things in the universe. These two martial arts forms have intermixed to occupy the blood vessels and are extinguishing the fire burning within him. Woo Mun screams out of fear, asking the sage if it means he also has Taeyong-jiki and if the landscape painting was made to cure him. The sage laughs and tells Woo Mun that he has successfully escaped the curse and lived past his 20th year. He says congratulations are in order. In shock, Woo Mun calls the sage master. The sage tells him that it seems their relationship has finally reached its conclusion. Woo Mun hears a voice in his head. The voice says, Tao eventually does not refer to a singular path. There is no distinction between good and evil Tao, and that is why they are Shinzian and Maxian. In the world, Shinzian refers to good, especially Taoist hermits who abandon worldly pleasures and retreat into the forest to live a secluded life. Maxian refers to evil. There's Jessian, alcoholics, Axian, Val people, Kiamson, great swordsman. Finally, the voice says that no matter what anyone thinks, he should never think of Tao as being constant and tells him to just find his own path and his own reason. Woo Mun wakes up and finds himself back in his body. The painting has become a blank canvas. Still shocked from everything, he questions why the painting has suddenly become a blank canvas. But it makes him realize that he was not dreaming just now. The sage presented the painting to Woo Mun for a reason. He was bequeathing martial arts to cure Woo Mun of his illness. Woo Mun bends and bows to thank the sage through the painting, saying, The life that you have bestowed upon him, he shall cherish it and put it to good use. That same night, a man is seen sitting and observing from the rooftop, drinking and saying, It's good to see that he has been living well. It's a beautiful day outside. It's Woo Mun. He stands proud, saying that his body feels so much better and revitalized. It's awesome because he plans to work hard and leave. Starting today, he begins his chores, rushing outside to get water, sprinting back to the inn. He arrives at the inn and thinks it's amazing that he didn't spill a single drop on his way back. He grabs a mop and cleans the entire inn swiftly. After cleaning, he arranges the plates with excitement. His mom comes in thrilled to see her son working. She praises her son, surprising him, and he asks why she came outside, that it's still so early. The dawn air is really chilly. Hasten back to your room. She says, You have been working so hard since morning for your father, and you've started speaking like someone your age. This mother's heart is so happy. Thank you, my Woo Mun. Holding hands with his mother, he realizes that he never knew her hands were this thin and cold. Even though it saddens him, he puts on a bright face and leads her back to her room. While in the room, his mother tells him that it's so nice to see he has returned to his old self, and that whenever she thinks about how he was, she doesn't finish her statement. Woo Mun, looking at his mom with tears of joy in her eyes, realizes that he has been such a bad son, and he feels like the world's worst son. He leaves her to rest, cheerfully saying goodbye. As he leaves, he sees his father, who just got out of bed and is shocked to see Woo Mun up this early. Woo Mun beats his chest and says, Father, from now on, he shall help him with running the inn. He tells his dad to also make him do any difficult tasks available. His father is filled with so much joy just from hearing this and rushes to hug Woo Mun with tears of joy. He exclaims, So yesterday's events were not a dream after all, my son. Woo Mun tells him to stop crying, but he cries even more, hugging Woo Mun and thanking all the gods in heaven. The Jade Emperor Buddha. He thanks them all for restoring Woo Mun. Woo Mun tries to free himself from his father's grip, telling him that he needs to get back to work, but he realizes he can't escape. Of course, his father seems to have been born with unlimited strength, but it's surprising for someone who doesn't know martial arts to be so strong. Woo Mun has to shout to his father to let him go because he has work to do. Hearing that he wants to work, his father finally lets go. Woo Mun finishes cleaning, and the entire place sparkles. His father is so pleased with this and says that their inn looks so clean. The dirt spots must have been hard to clean, so he asks Woo Mun if his body doesn't ache. Woo Mun smiles and says, Hardly. On the contrary, I feel so energetic. His father laughs and tells Woo Mun to feel free to get out and do whatever he likes while he goes to prepare to greet the guests. Woo Mun thinks about it and finally gets an idea of what to do. He rushes outside to where Mujin left the footwork footprints, and he's glad to see they're still there. Woo Mun says that it's unbelievable and amazing that a human could leave such footprints on a boulder. Mujin called it the divine and ethereal captivating movement, so he decides to try it out. Starting with the first foot, then the second, he thinks he's starting to get the hang of it but falls down hard. Now he knows that it's not easy. Learning martial arts is not as simple as he thought, that he tries again because he finds it fun. Whenever Woo Mun felt disheartened about the landscape painting, he would concentrate on the martial arts lessons from Mujin. For countless days, Woo Mun struggled to learn the moves. For no matter how much he had changed, he was still untrained in martial arts. After many trials and failures, one night, Woo Mun is in bed complaining about not getting it, saying that even sleeping seems like a waste of time. Then he gets an idea that he goes into meditation, breathing and thinking of the celestial and divine swordsmanship. He concentrates really hard, Suddenly, he opens his eyes and runs out of his room to practice the footwork, running past his father. He thinks maybe it's a good thing that he can't sleep and that he should occasionally use it when he can't sleep. His father calls to him, asking where he is going at this late hour of the night. He says he's going outside to exercise because he can't sleep and asks his father not to worry about him. His father comments on his energy, expressing that it's great to be young. Hearing the word energy, Woo Mun remembers his father hugging him when he couldn't move. He wonders if the reason why he couldn't follow Master Mujin's movements was because of the difference in muscle strength. Whenever he hopes to come close to mastering Master Mujin's movements, his body fails to follow. Now he is sure that muscle strength is the reason. That night, instead of practicing the footwork, Woo Mun goes out and starts to train his body. Woo Mun was correct in his thinking. He hadn't had an opportunity to train his muscles all this while, and thus he was unable to match up to Mujin's speed. Woo Mun focuses on learning martial arts movements and gaining muscle strength. The muscles that improve due to metamorphosis also develop much faster than others. Several days pass in this manner, with Woo Mun training hard and lifting heavy boulders. After dropping a boulder, Woo Mun is excited because he never thought he could become this strong. Now it's time to finally try the footwork again. He starts again, feeling a little closer to mastering the movement. He is able to follow the movements a bit more now. As he follows the movement, he imagines Mujin beside him and thinks this is so much fun. Training his body like this is exhilarating. He gets too excited because he is having so much fun, and on the last step, he uses his energy to conjure a sword. He didn't know how he was able to do it. He sees it for a second, and then it disappears. Looking at his hand, he wonders what that was. When one perfects Mujin's movements, he can naturally conjure the strokes of the landscape, painting instinctively without realizing it himself. He is able to use Mujin's method and conjure a sword. This was known as yearning for the sword. He clenches his fist in excitement and says that he wants a sword, remembering the time he fought Mujin. He's sure that even then, although he had a tree branch in his hands, it was possible to attack. He goes back to the place where it all started and picks up the swords of the evil, raucous, and corrupt four. Although they are broken, he thinks they may be of some use. He takes them all and goes to town. Inside a blacksmith shop, Woo Mun asks if it's possible to buy a sword with the broken ones he gathered. The blacksmith asks him if his father knows about this and what he plans to do with the sword. Woo Mun replies that the world is a scary place. That's why he wants to carry a sword, however shoddy it may be. The blacksmith agrees with Woo Mun, saying that even dogs and cows carry swords nowadays. So, Woo Mun humbly requests him. The blacksmith just stares at Woo Mun, noting how much he has changed since he last saw him. He responds to Woo Mun's request, saying that although the swords are broken, they can still be put to good use once melted. Woo Mun then asks if he would be able to purchase a sword with it, but the blacksmith tells him that's not possible. Woo Mun is shocked to hear this and asks why. The blacksmith turns away from Woo Mun and replies that it's because the weapons he makes would rob countless people of their lives, and he doesn't want to put clothes on his back by resorting to such acts. He tells Woo Mun that if he wishes, he could melt the swords and make a bowl out of them instead, asking Woo Mun to drop them and go. Woo Mun is determined to get a sword and shouts in response. He asks the blacksmith to teach him the craft of sword making, saying it would be all right if he made it himself. The blacksmith turns to him and asks what he means, asking if he wants to make a sword. Woo Mun tells him that if he agrees to teach him, he will do everything he asks. The blacksmith refuses, saying he can't do it, but Woo Mun pleads with him to reconsider. You shall suffer no loss because of it. I can even do the hard stuff. The blacksmith is surprised at Woo Mun's choice of words because he wasn't like this before. He tells Woo Mun that his stubbornness stands as testimony that he is his father's son. He asks Woo Mun to move all these iron wares into the warehouse by today, promising to teach him how to make a sword if he succeeds. Woo Mun is confused because those are heavy iron bricks. The blacksmith smiles as he walks away, thinking it would be difficult for someone like Woo Mun to even lift one. 2 hours later, Woo Mun comes running to the blacksmith, telling him that he has moved all of it. He asks the blacksmith to teach him. The blacksmith shouts, "What?" because he doesn't believe it. He goes with Woo Mun to check it out and sees that he has actually cleared it all. He tells Woo Mun that it's impossible because they are so heavy, so he asks how he managed to move them all in such a short time. Woo Mun asks if he's breaking his promise, and the blacksmith agrees to teach him, saying a promise is a promise. Woo Mun rejoices. The blacksmith then calls his apprentice, Min Song, and tells him to show Woo Mun how to work with the bellows. The guy is frustrated and questions how he's expected to teach that person to use the bellows. Woo Mun gets pissed that Min Song still thinks he is an idiot, but the blacksmith calls Min Song a fool, telling him that Woo Mun is older than him, so he should mind his words and hurry up and teach Woo Mun. The blacksmith is Min Sung's father. Min Sung tells Woo Mun that this is so damn annoying, but Woo Mun holds his cool and tells Min Sung that he looks forward to learning from him. Min Sung is still annoyed. He goes to the bellows and asks Woo Mun why it feels like he has grown taller. He doesn't even want to hear from Woo Mun, so he just asks him to come with him to the bellows. He tells Woo Mun that it's not easy to make a sword, and that even blacksmiths like himself and his father have to devote at least half a year to learn how to work the bellows. It's Woo Mun's turn to do what Min Sung has just shown him. So Woo Mun observes that Min Sung took the flames with the wind. As he works the bellows, he thinks to himself that the wind blows violently upon meeting the fire, almost like how the painting used to sway. In order to make a sword, one must learn how to control wind and fire, and it doesn't seem like an easy task. Min Sung gets pissed because he sees that Woo Mun is already getting the hang of it and is good at it. He wonders how this guy, who used to be an idiot, has become so smart. His jealousy makes him call Woo Mun away, telling him that they are done and saying, anyway, he is busy too, so he wasn't looking forward to spending too much time on this. Let's move on to forging. Now Woo Mun is shocked and asks if they are moving to the next stage already. While forging, Min Sung tells Woo Mun that this is what they call forging. The strike should be strong but controlled. There should not be the slightest error when you strike. He thinks this would give Woo Mun so much difficulty, so he smiles and tells Woo Mun that it would be hard for someone like him to do even 10 times. Woo Mun analyzes everything Min Sung has just told him, realizing that weak strikes would be futile, whereas excessively strong strikes would ruin the shape. He thinks this would definitely improve one's concentration, so he tells Min Sung that he would like to try it. Min Sung laughs and tells Woo Mun to take a big mallet while he uses the smaller one. Before they start, Min Sung tells Woo Mun that breathing is important here, and that he has to control his breath as well as the force he uses to strike, that he is excited and ready to laugh at Woo Mun because he thinks Woo Mun cannot last 30 minutes. They start, and Min Sung begins to sweat heavily, noticing that Woo Mun is doing so well and isn't even breaking a sweat. Min Sung gets tired and frustrated, wondering how this happened, because it seems to him that Woo Mun has been born to do this even better than his father. He disgracefully turns away and shouts, "Enough!" telling Woo Mun that they are done for today and that Woo Mun is bad at forging. Really bad, extremely dreadful. Even though he knows Woo Mun is doing it better than he is, Woo Mun apologizes and tells him that he will do better next time. But this makes Min Sung even more annoyed. He tells Woo Mun that the next step is wielding and that it's an extremely difficult job, so he asks Woo Mun to watch carefully. After teaching Woo Mun the basics, Min Sung thinks this is so annoying because Woo Mun is doing everything so well. Woo Mun asks if he is doing well, and this question provokes Min Sung even more. He can't hold it anymore, so he shouts at Woo Mun, saying that it's right. He says it 3 times out of frustration. It annoys him so much because someone he thought was an idiot is doing his job more perfectly and faster than anyone else. Woo Mun asks him if he is being ironic. Even the blacksmith himself is surprised and wonders how Woo Mun is able to learn such difficult things in such a short period of time. It's almost as if Woo Mun is talking to the sword while forging it. But the blacksmith thinks that's not it. He looks closer and says it's almost as if Woo Mun is making a sword and engaging in swordsmanship. He wonders how it is that even in something like this, Woo Mun finds such pleasure. In all the years the man has worked as a blacksmith, his face has never portrayed such joy. The blacksmith calms down and thinks. Then he asks Woo Mun and Min Sung to stop. Min Sung asks why, stating that he was the one who asked him to hurry along, so he's teaching Woo Mun wielding. Woo Mun is also surprised that they are being asked to stop, but the blacksmith tells Min Sung that it's all right and that he'll teach Woo Mun from here onward, shocking both Woo Mun and Min Sung. Woo Mun gets excited and thanks the blacksmith, who smiles back at him. After observing Woo Mun's progress, the master blacksmith personally steps in to guide him in sword making. Woo Mun is taken aback by how different the blacksmith's approach is compared to his son, Min Sung. The blacksmith offers little verbal instruction, yet Woo Mun learns significantly just by observing. The blacksmith's movements are precise, as he expertly controls the fire and strikes the metal with measured strength, resembling the rhythm and precision of a sword fight. Woo Mun is captivated by the seamless flow of the blacksmith's work. The blacksmith then challenges Woo Mun, asking if he feels capable of making a sword. Woo Mun responds with confidence, ready to take on the task. 4 days later, Min Sung, feeling worn out from their demanding work, approaches his father and pleads for a break, complaining that things have become more exhausting since they began teaching Woo Mun. The blacksmith reassures him, insisting that Woo Mun will soon be able to craft a sword. Min Sung, however, is skeptical and laughs at the notion. Insisting that Woo Mun is incapable and that it would take him at least 10 years to achieve such a feat, he criticizes his father for being too optimistic. When they arrive at the blacksmith shop, they are taken aback to find Woo Mun standing proudly with a completed sword. Woo Mun celebrates the completion of his sword. His eyes shine with pride as he admires his creation, stating that he forged it using his own strength. Min Song is left in shock, unable to believe that Woo Mun has succeeded so quickly in creating a sword. Min Song is still in shock at Woo Mun's accomplishment. He expresses disbelief that it could happen in just 4 days. Woo Mun reflects on his earlier experience making a sickle, feeling slow and awkward. In contrast, as he crafted the sword, his hands seemed to move on their own. He wonders if it's the influence of the painting he saw, but ultimately realizes that the true catalyst for his progress was the blacksmith's guidance. Grateful for the blacksmith's mentorship, Woo Mun thanks someone for their help in making the sword. The blacksmith responds with approval, noting that the sword turned out better than he anticipated. He then tells Woo Mun that there's no longer any need for him to make sickles or hoes. He can now create as many swords as he desires. Min Song expresses surprise and asks his father for clarification. Woo Mun, overwhelmed with gratitude, repeatedly thanks the blacksmith. The blacksmith then gives him an important caveat. He must promise to use the swords he makes fairly and justly. Woo Mun readily promises to agree. Meanwhile, Min Song is flustered and grits his teeth in disbelief, thinking about how Woo Mun managed to learn sword making in just a few days. With his new sword in hand, Woo Mun steps outside and reflects on the opportunity to learn the art of swordsmanship of heaven and earth. The next day at the inn, Woo Mun's speed and skill attract the attention of customers. One customer notes that Woo Mun has been showcasing his skills recently. Another customer shouts in encouragement and praising him for his performance. As Woo Mun chops vegetables with remarkable speed, a bold customer is impressed by Woo Mun's speed, noting that he seems faster than his father. A customer in a blue hat questions how the kid who used to sit idly has transformed into such a skilled worker, marveling at his progress. Sung Dae-won, Woo Mun's father, laughs and tells the customers that his son's newfound skills are a result of his teachings. He quietly asks Woo Mun if something good happened, noting his unusual excitement. Woo Mun modestly downplaying his recent burst of energy, attributing it to simply working harder. Their conversation is abruptly interrupted by the sudden, loud entrance of Im Chu, who arrives at the inn with a lady, Yun Si-hyun, and a guard, Jo Mu-jae. Im Chu addresses Yun Si-hyun, commenting on the inn's shabbiness but praising its food. Sung Dae-won, Woo Mun's father, warmly greets them, while Woo Mun quietly recognizes Im Chu, recalling a past encounter where Im Chu had beaten him. Im Chu, attempting to impress Yun Si-hyun, pulls out a chair for her and offers to assist if she needs anything. However, Jo Mu-jae sternly reprimands Im Chu, scolding him for his lack of manners and warning him not to sit at the table. Flustered, Im Chu quickly explains that he was only pulling out the chair for Mu-jae, offering him a seat instead. Mu-jae, maintaining his formality, refuses to sit, citing the Yun Si-hyun's high status, but Yun Si-hyun reassures him, dismissing such excessive politeness and encouraging both men to sit down. Reluctantly, Jo Mu-jae complies, sitting while noting that this will be a rare act of impropriety for him. Im Chu, taking a seat as well, mocks Mu-jae internally, deriding him for his servile nature and imagining him wasting his life as a lowly guard. Growing impatient, Im Chu rudely shouts at the inn staff to take their orders, prompting a gentle rebuke from Yun Si-hyun, who urges him to show more courtesy. At that moment, Woo Mun discreetly approaches their table, startling Mu-jae with his quiet presence. Mu-jae, who prides himself on his awareness, is surprised that he hadn't sensed Woo Mun's approach. Im Chu expresses disdain toward Woo Mun, questioning how someone he considers an idiot could serve them properly. Despite the insult, Woo Mun calmly asks for their order. Yun Si-hyun inquires about the best dishes, and Woo Mun recommends thin noodles and Peking duck, which Yun Si-hyun orders. As Woo Mun moves away, he taps Im Chu, who angrily reacts, accusing him of daring to hit him. Woo Mun apologizes sarcastically, acknowledging that he is indeed an idiot, leaving Im Chu momentarily speechless. After the meal, Yun Si-hyun compliments the food, saying it was delicious. Im Chu expresses gratitude, but then makes an excuse to leave, telling Yun Si-hyun he has urgent business. She warns him not to be late, and Im Chu watches her and Mu-jae depart before turning his attention back to the inn. He angrily kicks the door open and accuses the establishment of serving food with a hair strand in it, specifically mentioning the insult to their high lady. Woo Mun reacts with frustration, muttering under his breath. But his father, Sung Dae-won, intervenes. He warns Woo Mun against acting rashly, reminding him that Im Chu is a servant of a noble lady, and they must be cautious in dealing with him, despite the provocation. Woo Mun expresses his frustration over Im Chu's insult, feeling that Im Chu's accusations are mere attempts to retaliate against them. He is visibly upset about the situation and is unsure how to handle it quietly. Sung Dae-won, Woo Mun's father, urges him to let it go, insisting that they must endure the provocation. He reassures Woo Mun that he will handle the matter and hands Im Chu a bag of money as a form of apology, offering to refund his money and compensate him for the trouble. Im Chu accepts the money but is quick to assert that he is only staying silent for the sake of the noble lady he served. He warns Sung Dae-won to be cautious, emphasizing the disrespect shown to their lady. Sung Dae-won acknowledges this and responds respectfully. After Im Chu leaves, Sung Dae-won breathes a sigh of relief, feeling that they narrowly avoided a more significant conflict. However, Woo Mun remains angry about Im Chu's behavior and words. Later, as Im Chu walks through the street alone, he reflects on his frustrations, specifically targeting Jo Moo-jae and expressing his determination to pursue Yun Si-hyun. At this moment, Woo Mun calls out from behind, mockingly referring to Im Chu as bunny teeth, which prompts Im Chu to spin around in disbelief, demanding to know who insulted him. Upon realizing it is Woo Mun, Im Chu berates him, noting that he must have completely lost his sanity. Woo Mun embraces the provocation, admitting to his madness and challenging Im Chu to fight him, asking if he would like to experience a blow from a crazy guy. Im Chu, fueled by his anger, accepts the challenge, declaring that he has been looking for an opportunity to release his pent-up frustration. The tension escalates as they exchange insults, with Woo Mun daring Im Chu to try and retaliate. Im Chu rushes at Woo Mun, intending to throw a punch and angrily calling him an idiot. However, Woo Mun skillfully dodges the attack and counters with a punch that lands squarely on Im Chu's face, causing him to stagger backward and blood to flow from his nose. Despite the setback, Im Chu brushes off Woo Mun's luck and vows to come back stronger, declaring that he won't hold back and intends to kill Woo Mun. Yet, Woo Mun proves too agile for Im Chu's renewed attempts. He effortlessly avoids another punch and retaliates with a powerful strike to Im Chu's face, followed by a knee to his stomach. The blows leave Im Chu reeling, and Woo Mun seizes the opportunity to grab Im Chu by his distinctive bunny teeth. He mocks Im Chu, suggesting that he hasn't matured enough and calling him not even a larva, implying that Im Chu is still immature and unworthy. As the fight continues, Im Chu begins to sweat and internally questions how Woo Mun has grown so strong. Woo Mun issues a warning, instructing Im Chu not to return to their inn. He makes it clear that they don't serve people like him, differentiating between Im Chu and the more respectable company he arrived with. He admonishes Im Chu for using the names of those who seem honorable to justify his behavior, advising him to live honestly. Woo Mun also asserts his authority by stating he is reclaiming the money Im Chu took from his father. Woo Mun lands another punch on Im Chu, who staggers backward, further bleeding from his nose and feeling the pain of the fight. Before leaving, Woo Mun turns back and threatens to pluck out Im Chu's bunny teeth if he ever sees him again, firmly ordering him to leave. In response, Im Chu defiantly vows to make Woo Mun pay for disrespecting their lady, but Woo Mun retorts that he could do it right then and there. This final taunt causes Im Chu to flee, acknowledging that he is outmatched in this confrontation. Woo Mun reflects on his recent fight, feeling a sense of satisfaction at having grown stronger. The morning after the altercation with Im Chu, he returns the money he had taken from Im Chu to his father, Sung Dae-won, who reacts with disbelief. Dae-won questions how Woo Mun could have returned the money, suggesting that it was impossible for Im Chu to have willingly given it back. Woo Mun, somewhat surprised, explains that despite his own perceived weakness, Im Chu had asked him to be careful next time and return the money without a fight. Sung Dae-won acknowledges that Woo Mun likely didn't have the strength to forcefully take the money back from Im Chu, but he notes that the amount Woo Mun returned is actually more than he initially gave Im Chu. Woo Mun casually explains that the extra is just a day's worth of interest, though Dae-won is confused by this term and asks for clarification. Woo Mun shrugs off the question, telling his father to keep the money without further explanation. At that moment, four girls enter the inn, and the leader of the group remarks on the heat and how uninteresting the district is. Meanwhile, Woo Mun's attention is drawn to a girl at the back named Yeo Seol, who has striking red hair and red eyes. He approaches her, captivated by her beauty and thinking to himself that she resembles a fairy. Noticing Woo Mun's focus on Yeo Seol, The group leader feels a twinge of annoyance, questioning why he is paying attention to Yeoseo when she is standing right there. She prompts Woo Mun by asking if the inn is open and whether he works there. Woo Mun responds in a serious tone, ready to serve, asking what they would like to order or if they would prefer to see the rooms. Yeoseo then speaks up to clarify their needs, explaining that they are not familiar with the menu and requests something tasty at a reasonable price. She mentions that they plan to stay for the night and will be leaving the next morning, thus asking Woo Mun to prepare 2 rooms for their group. Woo Mun smiles at Yeoseo while saying yes. The group leader comments that it seems Woo Mun only smiles for Yeoseo and suggests that since Yeoseo typically prefers simple things, she would be satisfied with someone like an innkeeper. The group leader implies that Woo Mun's role as an innkeeper is modest, which causes Woo Mun to question his identity. At that moment, his father, Sung Dae-won, calls out to Woo Mun, urging him to show the girls to their seats. Woo Mun politely asks them to sit, assuring them that their food will be ready shortly. However, the group leader quickly criticizes the condition of the chair, saying it looks like it could fall apart at any moment, suggesting Yeoseo should sit here. Yeoseo complies, moving to that chair without protest. This behavior frustrates Woo Mun, who wonders why the group leader is so mean to Yeoseo and where they might have come from. As Woo Mun begins chopping vegetables, he notices the girls chatting animatedly among themselves, while Yeoseo remains silent and excluded from the conversation. Concerned about her isolation, Woo Mun thinks about how nobody is engaging with Yeoseo, sensing her discomfort. When night falls, the group leader directs her attention back to Woo Mun, referring to him as innkeeper, and demanding to know where they will be staying for the night. Woo Mun gestures for her to follow him, but this only angers the group leader, who finds his actions disrespectful, calling him an impertinent idiot. One of the other girls chimes in, dismissing Woo Mun as just a worthless innkeeper boy who lacks martial arts skills. Woo Mun feels flustered and indignant, thinking to himself that he is not worthless, especially since he does no martial arts. Eventually, Woo Mun leads the girls to their room and confirms that the person will be staying there. The group leader reacts negatively to the room Woo Mun shows them, claiming it is too small and smells bad. Woo Mun calmly responds that all other rooms are occupied and suggests that if they are dissatisfied, they should find another inn. This angers the group leader, who threatens Woo Mun, saying he is courting disaster by treating her this way. Another girl from the group intervenes, warning the leader to back off, explaining that they cannot afford to attract attention by attacking someone who lacks martial arts skills. She implies that their master would be displeased if they did so. Curious, the group leader asks about that, but the girl dismisses the topic, telling the leader to forget about Woo Mun and focus on getting some rest. The group leader reluctantly concedes, stating that Woo Mun is lucky today. Seizing the opportunity, Woo Mun suggests that if the current space is too small, he can take one to stay in the stables. The group leader orders Yeoseo to go to the stables, prompting a confused response from her. When she asks why, the group leader accuses her of hesitating, but Yeoseo reassures her that it's not a refusal and agrees to go. Woo Mun then instructs her to follow him. As they leave, Yeoseo turns back to her friends, wishing them a good night, while group leader stated to her not to oversleep. However, instead of taking Yeoseo to the stables, Woo Mun leads her to a much nicer room, explaining that a guest had canceled, so he won't charge her extra. Yeoseo is surprised by the room's size and cleanliness and expresses that it might be better to invite the other girls to join her. Woo Mun assures Yeoseo that her friends would likely be asleep by now and that disturbing them would be pointless. He observes that everyone appears tired, suggesting they may have already fallen asleep. He humorously warns Yeoseo to keep his kindness a secret, or else he might face repercussions from her friends. Yeoseo agrees and expresses her gratitude, thanking him for his consideration. Woo Mun responds warmly, telling her not to worry and wishing her a good night before leaving the room. Once he steps out, Yeoseo excitedly explores her new accommodations. She lays down on the bed, delighted by its coziness. Woo Mun, overhearing her cheerful comment, feels a sense of happiness from having made her comfortable. He decides to practice his martial arts for the time being, satisfied with how things are going. Meanwhile, outside the inn, Imchu arrives with a group of martial artists, pointing out Woo Mun's location and declaring that he is the one who beat him. The leader of this martial arts group, Daebiacha, scolds Imchu for his reckless behavior, warning him that if the promised money is not forthcoming, he will regret it. Imchu reassures Daebiacha, promising that if they ensure Woo Mun can no longer harm him, he will pay the 45 silver coins he owes. Filled with rage, Imchu expresses his intent to make Woo Mun suffer, referring to him as asshole. Woo Mun steps out of the inn with his wooden sword, planning to practice his martial arts. His focus is quickly interrupted when Im-chu confronts him, declaring that he's dead now and that he has brought Daebiacha with him, a formidable martial artist. Daebiacha mocks Im-chu's inability to handle Woo Mun, calling him worthless. Unfazed, Woo Mun sighs and warns Im-chu that he had previously advised him against this confrontation. Im-chu retorts, telling Woo Mun to watch his words, threatening that Daebiacha will not spare him. Daebiacha responds to Woo Mun's slight by swinging his axe at him, but Woo Mun deftly dodges the attack. Daebiacha's confidence grows as he declares that merely injuring Woo Mun's legs won't suffice, vowing to break all of his limbs. Im-chu shouts encouragement, urging Daebiacha to destroy Woo Mun. Daebiacha swings his axe wildly, laughing as he attempts to land a hit. However, Woo Mun proves agile, easily evading each strike. Daebiacha is baffled, likening Woo Mun's movements to that of a mudfish, unable to understand how he can dodge so effortlessly. In a moment of clarity, Woo Mun recalls the stance that his teacher, Song Woo Mun, taught him. He recognizes the energy flowing through him, reminiscent of the divine and ethereal captivating movement. This revelation helps him to further refine his dodging technique. Frustrated, Daebiacha orders his underlings to grab Woo Mun, attempting to corner him. As the two henchmen advance with their weapons drawn, Woo Mun sees an opportunity to combine his sword fighting and martial arts energy skills. He swiftly strikes at both underlings, showcasing his agility and skill. After Woo Mun dispatches both of Daebiacha's underlings, only Daebiacha himself remains standing. Fueled by anger, Daebiacha prepares for the next confrontation. When Daebiacha attempts to attack him, Woo Mun swiftly knocks the axe out of his hands, sending it flying away from them. Pointing his wooden sword at Daebiacha, Woo Mun taunts him, questioning if he's ready to give up and encouraging him to retrieve the axe for a fair fight. Daebiacha, taken aback by Woo Mun's confidence, feels mocked, realizing that he is being outmatched by someone wielding only a wooden sword. His two injured underlings, still on the ground, nervously call out to him for support. Daebiacha starts to sweat, acknowledging internally that he can no longer underestimate Woo Mun. In an attempt to save face, he laughs and concedes that if Woo Mun has a grudge against Im-chu, he is free to deal with him as he wishes. To Woo Mun's surprise, Daebiacha turns to flee, commanding his underlings to follow. They comply, calling out to him as they scramble to catch up. As they retreat, Woo Mun expresses disappointment, lamenting that he was just beginning to find his rhythm in the fight. He reflects on how combining sword fighting with martial arts energy was helping him feel a sense of completion within his body. Meanwhile, Im-chu, watching the events unfold, is drenched in sweat and filled with disbelief at Woo Mun's newfound strength. Feeling emboldened, Woo Mun grabs Im-chu and confronts him, threatening him with more violence. He chastises Im-chu for his despicable behavior towards his father and suggests that he should have learned to behave better after being hit in the past. Im-chu, sensing the danger, desperately tries to appease Woo Mun, claiming he was wrong. However, before he can finish his sentence, Woo Mun delivers a solid punch to Im-chu's face, making it clear that he will not tolerate any further disrespect. Woo Mun accuses Im-chu of only attacking those weaker than him. Im-chu starts to respond, but Woo Mun interrupts by punching him again, warning that if he would go to such lengths over a small issue, he must have committed worse acts in the past and advises him not to do it again. After delivering a thorough beating to Im-chu, Woo Mun warns him that he doesn't believe Im-chu will reflect on his actions anytime soon. He tells Im-chu that if he doesn't want to face further consequences, he should leave. With his battered body, Im-chu starts to move away, clearly shaken by the encounter. Woo Mun reflects on the chaotic events of the day, expressing disbelief that he had to deal with Im-chu and Daebiacha in quick succession. Despite the tumultuous experiences, he finds excitement in experimenting with the combination of sword fighting and martial arts energy, indicating a sense of growth and mastery over his skills. The next morning, Woo Mun is abruptly awakened from his sleep by a shout from the leader of girls' martial arts group, who calls for the innkeeper. He quickly runs to her room, concerned that something might be wrong, and asks if there's a problem. The leader, however, simply expresses her thirst and demands water. Although Woo Mun feels a surge of anger at her demanding attitude, he restrains himself and informs her that there is water located under her bed. To his irritation, she responds by asking for tea instead. Woo Mun tells her he will get her a cup of tea from the restaurant downstairs and invites her to come down. She responds by saying that they were going to leave anyway, so they might as well accompany him. As they descended the stairs of the inn, the girls' martial arts group leader taunted Yeoseol, questioning if she slept well in the horse shed and if it smelled bad. Before Yeo Seol could respond, Woo Mun interjected, defending the cleanliness of the horse shed and insisting she must have slept well. Yeo Seol confirmed this, that her experience was indeed pleasant. After the martial arts group finished their business, they prepared to leave the inn, while Sung Dae-won, Woo Mun's father, enthusiastically bid them farewell, expressing hopes for their return and wishing them a safe journey. Woo Mun remained quietly fixated on Yeo Seol. This silent admiration did not go unnoticed by his father, who teasingly questioned Woo Mun about his feelings for her, suggesting he had developed a crush. Woo Mun quickly denied this, claiming that while he felt a sense of pity for Yeo Seol, their interactions were not indicative of any romantic interest. He observed that the dynamic between Yeo Seol and the group leaders seemed strained, which further led him to dismiss any idea of attraction. In a moment of vulnerability, Woo Mun then redirected the conversation by inquiring about his brother, Woo Kong, who was taken in by the martial artists of Hwasan. This question brought a noticeable shift in his father's demeanor, as Sung Dae-won's expression darkened, revealing sadness and concern over Woo Kong's situation. He had left Woo Mun behind, who felt inadequate due to his perceived weakness in martial arts. The next morning, Sung Dae-won approached Woo Mun with an important proposition. The noble Lee Bi house had requested Woo Mun to work for them. He emphasized that the conditions of employment were excellent, even lamenting that he would have taken the opportunity himself if he were 10 years younger. Woo Mun was taken aback, questioning why he would leave the inn where he had been helping his father so diligently. Dae-won acknowledged Woo Mun's hard work, but expressed his concern over the emotional toll it took on him to hear guests insult him. He emphasized that Woo Mun could not remain at the inn forever, as he deserved better treatment. Dae-won then remarked on Woo Mun's personal growth. He noted that Woo Mun no longer obsessively focused on the past and had become more perceptive and intelligent. He encouraged Woo Mun to prove to his mother that he had matured into a respectable man. This struck a chord with Woo Mun, who reflected on his father's words, realizing he couldn't continue being a burden on his family, especially with his mother's health declining. Determined to show his family that he could take responsibility, Woo Mun agreed to work at the Lee Bi house, vowing to make his parents proud. This declaration moved Dae-won to tears, and he embraced Woo Mun, expressing his pride in his son's decision and character. Woo Mun, slightly embarrassed, teased his father about crying over such matters. Later, at the Lee Bi noble family house, the recruitment officer examined Woo Mun, skeptical of his abilities due to his slender physique. He asked what Woo Mun could lift, casting doubt on his strength. In response, Woo Mun showcased his surprising power by effortlessly lifting both the recruitment officers with his chair and table with one hand each. He playfully challenged the officer, asking if this demonstration was sufficient proof of his strength. The officer, astonished by Woo Mun's unexpected display of strength, exclaimed in disbelief and asked to be let down, realizing that he had underestimated Woo Mun. After impressively showcasing his strength to the recruitment officer, Woo Mun was officially accepted as a porter for the Lee Bi noble family. He laughed, feeling a sense of accomplishment, and remarked to himself how easy the process had been. As night approached, an announcement was made for all new recruits to gather. The officer informed them that they would leave for Goryeo the next day and instructed everyone to prepare by moving the luggage. Woo Mun realized that had he arrived even a moment later, he might have missed the opportunity to apply, highlighting his good fortune. Among the other porters was Mr. Seo, who addressed Woo Mun directly, reminding him to keep up on the long journey ahead. Woo Mun acknowledged him respectfully. As he surveyed the area, he noticed Yun Si-hyun, the young lady he had met at the inn, along with a companion. He expressed curiosity about the identity of the person accompanying her. Mr. Seo explained that the individual was from the Kunlun faction, a well-known martial arts group, and was there to accompany Yun Si-hyun to Goryeo. This revelation struck a chord with Woo Mun, as he recalled that Shang Mujin, his martial arts mentor, had also mentioned being from the Kunlun faction. This connection piqued his interest and raised questions about the nature of Yun Si-hyun's journey. Curious about why Yun Si-hyun would need protection from a martial artist, Woo Mun wondered if the road to Goryeo was particularly dangerous. This concern lingered in his mind as he returned to the inn, eager to share the news of his new job and the day's events with his mother. But his mother, Baek Jin, expressed her concerns about the upcoming journey to Goryeo. She worried that the trip could be dangerous and suggested that he wait until they returned before starting work. Woo Mun reassured her, explaining that the porters would receive extra pay for accompanying the noble family on the trip. Despite his assurances, Baek Jin remained anxious. Wu Mun attempted to ease her worries by mentioning that many factions, including the prestigious Wasan faction, would gather in Goryang Pyong, allowing him a chance to reunite with his brother, Wu Kong. His mother's concern began to dissipate as she realized he might finally see his brother soon. However, she asked him to promise that he wouldn't get into fights like his father and brother had in the past, which had caused her much anxiety. Sung Daewong, Wu Mun's father, chimed in to defend himself, stating that he no longer engaged in fights. Wu Mun laughed at their banter and reassured his mother that he would avoid conflict, urging her to stop worrying and to take care of herself while he was away, with a promise to return soon. The Li Bi noble family departed for Seoul. Their entourage consisted of close to 250 men. Their numbers were so great that nobody would believe that this was a family losing its standing. This was the last chance for this family to take a chance upon fate and emphasize their strength. As Wu Mun continued his work as a porter, he was feeling energetic and enthusiastic about his new job. Mr. Seo, one of his fellow porters, remarked on Wu Mun's lack of fatigue and sweat, attributing it to his excitement about working for the nobility and earning money for the first time. Their lighthearted conversation highlighted the youthful vigor that Wu Mun had, and it became evident that he was enjoying his new role. As night approached, an announcement was made to set up camp for the night, prompting Mr. Seo to request water. This led to a chorus of demands from the other porters, all wanting Wu Mun to serve them. In good spirits, Wu Mun decided to fetch a large bucket of water to accommodate everyone's requests. Meanwhile, at Yun Si-hyen's tent, a girl expresses her increased confidence with Yu Mun Kwang accompanying her to Kunlun. Yu Mun Kwang responds that it is an honor to accompany her. One girl comments on his humility despite being in the Kunlun sect, while the atmosphere in the tent was light, with the other girls playfully teasing Yu Mun Kwang about his humility, which he dismissed internally, knowing he was in a favorable position. He recognized the luxurious accommodations and attractive company he had, contrasting it with the old men he typically associated with in his sect. Yu Mun Kwang's thoughts turned more possessively toward Yun Si-hyen, reflecting on how she was a hidden gem from a small village. He set his sights on winning her over during their journey, seeing the next 4 days as an opportunity to make her his. Then one of the girls noticed Wu Mun outside and exclaimed that she didn't recognize him. The other girl commented on Wu Mun's youth and impressive physique, implying he looked fit and healthy. Yu Mun Kwang, overhearing this, felt a surge of jealousy. He was taken aback by the attention Wu Mun was receiving, thinking it inappropriate for someone like him, a mere porter, to strip down without regard for their surroundings. The sight of Wu Mun drawing attention made Yu Mun Kwang seethe, especially since he noticed Yun Si-hyen, the noble lady he was interested in, also looking at Wu Mun with curiosity. The thought that she, too, was captivated by the young porter fueled his anger and insecurity. The other girls, amused by the unfolding scene, teased about how even the noble lady couldn't seem to take her eyes off Wu Mun. Unbeknownst to them, Yun Si-hyen was contemplating the impressive physique of Wu Mun, realizing he might have potential as a martial artist despite her initial belief that he hadn't trained in martial arts. Feeling overshadowed and desperate to regain control of the situation, Yu Mun Kwang decided to act. He took a needle from his pocket, a weapon known as the piercing and maiming nail, and threw it toward Wu Mun with malicious intent. His thoughts revealed his plan to injure Wu Mun severely enough to ensure he would be disabled for life, all while the women looked on, ensuring that Wu Mun's downfall would occur in front of them. Mun sensed the incoming needle and quickly nullified the attack with his hand. Yu Mun Kwang was shocked by Wu Mun's ability to effortlessly counter the strike, muttering in disbelief, "No, how is this possible?" When the girls nearby noticed his reaction and asked if something was wrong, Yu Mun Kwang brushed it off, but his thoughts betrayed his fear. He wondered how a lowly porter like Wu Mun could nullify such a skilled attack, and began to question who Wu Mun really was. Though Wu Mun didn't know who had thrown the needle, he glanced in Yu Mun Kwang's direction, causing him to panic. Yu Mun Kwang, frightened, thinks Wu Mun must be a martial arts master, but Wu Mun casually dismisses the situation, muttering in annoyance about who threw that, finding it amusing. This only deepened Yu Mun Kwang's fear, convinced that Wu Mun knew exactly what he had done. Later that night, as everyone slept, Wu Mun slipped away from the camp with his sword. Despite feeling exhausted from the day's errands, he saw this quiet moment as an opportunity to practice his swordsmanship. He remarked to himself, he can finally rest now. But of course, resting time is the time to practice sword fighting. Wu Mun had made a habit of regularly practicing his sword fighting, even for short periods. He found the practice of sword fighting and martial arts to be invigorating, both mentally and physically. As he swung his sword, he could feel his muscles strengthened by the consistent practice, becoming more relaxed. After a few swings, he felt his body loosening up and his mind refreshed, ready for more challenges ahead. Late at night, Woo Mun was diligently practicing his sword fighting when Baek Sang-gun, a man wearing a yellow bandana, appeared behind him, applauding his skills. Baek Sang-gun praised Woo Mun's abilities, expressing that he had never seen such impressive swordsmanship before and felt he had missed out by not witnessing it sooner. Intrigued by Woo Mun's talent, Baek Sang-gun inquired about his identity and teacher. Woo Mun, while thinking of his mentor Song Woo-jin, replied that he did not have an official teacher. Baek Sang-gun found this response intriguing and, laughing, suggested that Woo Mun might be a hidden martial arts prodigy. He went further, hinting at a grand destiny for Woo Mun, calling him the Shimron Dragon of Murim, and implying that Woo Mun had a secret mission to save the world from future dangers. Woo Mun denied any such identity or mission, but Baek Sang-gun continued with his cryptic remarks, asking if Woo Mun was hunting evil factions like the Evil Bloody Sect or the Four Gates of 1,000 Evils. Woo Mun, bewildered by Baek Sang-gun's strange talk, wondered if the man was drunk. He clarified that he was not pursuing any group, prompting Baek Sang-gun to laugh and admit that he was only joking. Not wanting to prolong the odd conversation, Woo Mun politely excused himself, leaving the scene. As Woo Mun attempted to distance himself from Baek Sang-gun, the latter persistently followed him, claiming they had met by fate and suggesting they travel together. Baek Sang-gun mentioned that he was heading to Goryeo-pyong, offering to accompany Woo Mun if their paths aligned. Trying to avoid further interaction, Woo Mun decided to run off, but when he returned to camp, he was surprised to find Baek Sang-gun already there. Baek Sang-gun, now laughing, teased Woo Mun about his fast pace, pointing out that everyone was resting. To Woo Mun's dismay, he realized Baek Sang-gun had become a porter for the noble lady they were accompanying, after impressing an officer by effortlessly lifting heavy luggage. That night, Baek Sang-gun continued to bother Woo Mun, asking him to demonstrate more martial arts techniques. Woo Mun, growing frustrated, explained that he didn't know any more moves beyond what he had already shown. Despite Woo Mun's exhaustion and pleas for rest, Baek Sang-gun kept pestering him for conversation, saying he wasn't tired yet. Woo Mun, irritated by Baek Sang-gun's relentless behavior, thought to himself that he was stuck with a particularly strange companion. The next day, Woo Mun was visibly fatigued, having had little sleep due to Baek Sang-gun's interruptions. As they journeyed towards Goryeo-pyong, Woo Mun shot an angry glare at Baek Sang-gun, who responded teasingly, "Why are you looking at me like that? I'm not into men." Annoyed, Woo Mun snapped, realizing he didn't even know Baek Sang-gun's name. In his carefree style, Baek Sang-gun responded that names weren't important and suggested Woo Mun could simply call him Nameless Traveler. Woo Mun, now addressing Baek Sang-gun as Mr. Nameless Traveler, continued to receive playful jabs from him. Baek Sang-gun teased, saying, "Isn't it polite to ask someone's name at least twice?" However, Woo Mun, indifferent to the banter, replied, "No, it's fine, Mr. Nameless Traveler." Baek Sang-gun, pretending to be hurt, pleaded for Woo Mun to be nicer, but soon shifted his focus to something unusual, commenting cryptically, "It's closer than I thought," leaving Woo Mun confused. At that moment, an officer announced it was time for a lunch break. Seizing the opportunity, Baek Sang-gun grabbed Woo Mun's hand, excitedly urging him to follow, claiming he had something to show him. Woo Mun, both curious and cautious, asked about it. Baek Sang-gun only hinted at a huge gift that would surprise him. As they ventured further away from the group, climbing steep, rocky terrain, Woo Mun grew concerned and asked how much longer it would take, worried about getting into trouble for being late. Baek Sang-gun, however, reassured him, insisting that if he didn't follow, he would surely regret it. Despite his wariness, Woo Mun couldn't help but notice Baek Sang-gun's effortless agility in climbing the difficult terrain, realizing that this man was not ordinary. Finally, they reached a cliff, and Baek Sang-gun revealed the surprise. A majestic, silver-haired celestial tiger stood before them. Stunned, Woo Mun stared in awe at the divine creature. Baek Sang-gun proudly explained that it was the silver-haired celestial tiger, or Yunmo Biko, a treasured beast born with divine starlight. Overwhelmed by the sight, Woo Mun asked more about the mystical creature. Baek Sang-gun continued explaining the silver-haired celestial tiger to Woo Mun, noting that although the tiger was close to being a celestial beast, it wasn't truly one because it lacked a divinity crystal, the Naden, in its body. He added that the tiger appeared to have died recently. Woo Mun was amazed, thinking that the beast's fur was stronger than steel and its teeth could crush diamonds. He couldn't believe he was witnessing such a legendary creature in person. Suddenly, a cub attacked Baek Sang-gun, who swiftly struck it, sending the cub crashing to the ground. Shocked, Woo Mun questioned, "It's just a cub. Aren't you being too harsh?" The cub, undeterred, rushed to its mother's dead body, growling defensively at the two men. Baek Sangun laughed, admiring the cub's protective instincts, saying, "Even though it's just a beast, it's amazing that it's trying to protect its mother's body from strangers." Woo Mun then remarked that no matter how mystical the creature was, it would struggle to survive on its own. Baek Sangun, seizing on Woo Mun's concern, proposes that Woo Mun adopt the cub, pointing out that if they leave it behind, it will surely die. The suggestion catches Woo Mun off guard, and he reacts with surprise and disbelief, unsure of how to respond. Woo Mun shouted in anger, asserting that Baek Sangun was responsible for bringing him to this place, and should therefore take care of the cub. Baek Sangun, however, responded nonchalantly, claiming that he expected to end up in prison soon and couldn't take on that responsibility. He compared himself to the clouds and the wind, emphasizing that living freely was his life's purpose. Woo Mun thought to himself that Baek Sangun was suddenly acting very cool and composed in a moment of crisis. Despite Baek Sangun's urging to take care of the cub, Woo Mun remained firm in his refusal. In a playful yet mischievous manner, Baek Sangun laughed and, channeling his ki, tapped his shoulder to create a noise. When Woo Mun noticed and asked about the sound, Baek Sangun pretended not to hear, thinking to himself that Woo Mun's hearing was quite sharp. Suddenly, Woo Mun spotted a large boulder poised to fall on the cub and its deceased mother. Realizing the imminent danger, he shouted at the cub to run away, but the cub didn't move away and wants to remain with his mother's side. Without hesitation, Woo Mun rushed forward, determined to save the cub. He blocked the boulder, declaring, "Biko, his mother, may be dead, but at least he must live," before using his strength to hurl the boulder away. Baek Sangun was astonished, exclaiming, "He is really incredible, little brother." He can't believe he tossed that huge boulder aside like that. He then explained that the female silver-haired celestial tiger typically dies after giving birth to 3 cubs, and this cub was the third one. Baek Sangun noted that the third cub is said to be the strongest of the litter, but since it loses its mother immediately after birth, its chances of survival are very low. He concluded that if Woo Mun hadn't intervened, the cub would likely have died. Woo Mun confronts Baek Sangun, suspecting him of orchestrating the earlier event involving to the cub. Baek Sangun expresses a desire for Woo Mun not to judge him too harshly, explaining that his actions were motivated by concern for him. He emphasizes that he did what he did for his benefit, specifically mentioning the Yunmo Biko, which he implies is no ordinary beast. His statement suggests that the creature possesses significant power, which the Woo Mun may not fully understand. Baek Sangun's intention is to help the listener recognize his own potential and strength. As Woo Mun looks at the cub of the Yunmo Biko, he grapples with a deep sense of responsibility and emotional conflict. He realizes he is not in a position to care for the cub and prioritizes his obligations to his parents over his personal feelings. Despite this resolve, he expresses a soft apology to the cub as he walks away. The cub gazes at Woo Mun with tear-filled eyes as he prepares to leave, signaling its sadness and attachment. Especially after Woo Mun had saved the cub from a boulder earlier. The cub then turns its attention to its mother, acknowledging her presence one last time before saying goodbye to her lifeless body. Ultimately, driven by instinct and the connection formed with Woo Mun, the cub makes the decision to follow him, leaving behind its mother in search of safety and companionship. Baek Sangun, watching from a distance, reassures the cub's mother that he has entrusted her child to someone reliable. Later, at the camp, Baek Sangun mocks Woo Mun for abandoning the cub, but Woo Mun reveals that the cub, who had hidden itself in his dress. His frustration surfaces as he confronts Baek Sangun, feeling trapped by the cub's persistence in following him. Woo Mun's frustration with Baek Sangun escalates as he contemplates physical retaliation against Baek's mockery. Baek Sangun finds amusement in Woo Mun's irritation and points out that it seems Woo Mun has decided to take responsibility for raising the Yunmo Biko cub. He shares insights about the cub, noting that it won't attack without cause due to its divine light, and that it is omnivorous, capable of eating both meat and rice. In response, Woo Mun urges Baek Sangun to quickly fetch some rice, noting his concern over the immediate needs of the cub. He expresses his exasperation with a sigh, signaling the weight of the responsibility he now feels. Baek Sangun agrees to help, asserting that he can manage to find food. As Baek Sangun approaches the food handlers, his attempts to procure rice are met with resistance. He asks for leftover rice, but the food workers inform him that they have just finished serving and are preparing to leave. Baek Sangun, undeterred, insists there is still plenty of food left, but his request is met with disdain from one of the handlers, who dismisses him as a good-for-nothing. Yu Munkwang intervenes and asks about the situation, prompting the food handler to explain Baek Sangun's late arrival and request for food. Yu Munkwang is observing Baek Sangun with contempt, viewing him as a useless person who is now associating with Woo Mun, a porter. Yu Munkwang dismisses Woo Mun's earlier deflection of his attack as mere luck, believing that both men are incompetent. Frustrated, he kicks over a bucket of rice, mocking him by saying he wanted some food. Here you go. Baek Sangun reacts with outrage, exclaiming that Yu Munkwang has wasted precious rice. Despite the gravity of the situation, Yu Munkwang simply smiles, which only serves to aggravate Baek Sangun further. As Baek Sangun continues to laugh, the food handlers and Yu Munkwang become increasingly disturbed. The food handler expresses disbelief at Baek Sangun's boldness in acting this way in front of someone of Yu Munkwang's stature. However, Baek Sangun's laughter reaches a fever pitch, resulting in a surreal reaction. Both the food handler and Yu Munkwang start bleeding from their ears, nose, and mouth, ultimately collapsing in agony and pleading for him to stop. Baek Sangun remarked that it had been 100 years since he experienced such treatment, expressing that he found it genuinely enjoyable and entertaining. Baek Sangun picks up a rice ball from the ground, which symbolizes the waste from the earlier chaos caused by Yu Munkwang. In a tone of feigned modesty, Baek Sangun states that he will accept the rice with gratitude and take his leave. Meanwhile, Yu Munkwang kneels on the ground, visibly shaken and drenched from the pressure exerted by Baek Sangun's earlier display of power. Overwhelmed, he questions the identity of Baek Sangun, labeling him an absolute terror, and expressing disbelief at the existence of such a skilled martial artist who appears to be over 100 years old. As Baek Sangun walks away, he encounters Woo Mun and asks did he see that? To which Woo Mun responds affirmatively. Baek Sangun then reflects on their journey, suggesting that he no longer needs to pursue Woo Mun closely. He mentions they are nearing Goryang Pyong and invites Woo Mun to follow him, hinting at the importance of the knowledge he has to share. Later, Baek Sangun inquires if Woo Mun was startled by the earlier incident. Woo Mun acknowledges that he has been aware of Baek Sangun's extraordinary nature since their trip up the mountain. Baek Sangun expresses admiration for Woo Mun's insight, calling him incredible, and implying that he wasn't as perceptive at that age. Curious about Woo Mun's ambitions, Baek Sangun asks about his dreams. Woo Mun reflects on his desire to earn a lot of money to care for his sick mother, revealing a sense of duty and responsibility. Baek Sangun, however, pushes deeper, questioning whether this aim truly reflects Woo Mun's personal aspirations. He observes that while taking care of his mother is commendable, it does not encompass Woo Mun's own dreams or future. This prompts Woo Mun to introspect, leading him to question his own desires and goals. Baek Sangun then bluntly states that he perceives Woo Mun as lacking direction, suggesting that he is merely cruising through life. Woo Mun begins to reflect deeply on Baek Sangun's earlier words, realizing that he has never truly contemplated what he wants to achieve in life or set any clear goals. He feels as though he is confined by the illusions of his past, particularly influenced by a painting that has significantly impacted his life and perceptions. Baek Sangun surprises Woo Mun with a question about whether he aspires to become like him. This unexpected inquiry takes Woo Mun by surprise. His immediate reaction is one of confusion, prompting him to seek clarification. Baek Sangun explains his philosophy of life, stating that he is the only person in the Murim martial arts community who lives without any particular thoughts or goals. He describes himself as drifting aimlessly like a cloud, emphasizing his unique approach to existence, an existence free from the burdens of ambition and structure. He claims to be a pioneer of living thoughtlessly in the Murim, attributing this perspective to his advanced age. He hands Woo Mun a manual, downplaying its significance. When Woo Mun examines the manual and realizes it is the complete guide to martial arts, he is taken aback, exclaiming his disbelief at receiving such a valuable resource. Baek Sangun reassures him, reiterating his philosophy of living freely. Didn't he tell him before? He asserts that he lives and acts according to his own desires. He explains that his fascination with Woo Mun's inner energy led him to stick around, but he has come to genuinely like him. He clarifies that the manual does not contain any secret or complex martial arts techniques. Instead, it details the fundamental principles of martial arts, which he believes will be beneficial to Woo Mun if he takes the time to read it. Grateful for the gift, Woo Mun expresses his thanks, but also poses a question about enhancing his martial arts skills. Do we know how one can focus their inner energies onto their hand or their sword to make it stronger and make it light up? Baek Sangun acknowledges the question and affirms Woo Mun's intent to learn how to materialize his powers. Woo Mun confirms this desire, emphasizing his eagerness to understand and control his abilities. Baek Sangun conveys to Woo Mun the importance of practical demonstration over mere explanation when it comes to mastering martial arts techniques. He stresses that enhancing control over one's energy is crucial for success. Acknowledging his own nature, he candidly admits he is not very kind, indicating that he will only demonstrate the technique once, urging Woo Mun to memorize it carefully. Baek Sangun believes that Woo Mun's concentration skills will allow him to grasp the technique easily. Baek Sangun begins by explaining the fundamentals of focusing energy. The easiest thing is to concentrate your energies onto an object. He elaborates that once enough energy is accumulated, it will overflow and manifest outwardly. However, he warns that this process is akin to pouring water into a broken pot, meaning that without proper containment and control, real strength cannot be effectively demonstrated. He emphasizes the necessity of careful regulation to prevent wasteful spillage of inner energy. As Woo Mun practices and hones his control, Baek Sangun assures him that he will be able to channel his energy into objects for longer durations. This ability will ultimately enable him to manifest weapons and improve his swordsmanship. To illustrate his point, Baek Sangun prepares to demonstrate the technique. Woo Mun watches in awe as Baek Sangun focuses his previously scattered energy into a single point, transforming it into the shape of a sword. Overwhelmed by the sight, Woo Mun thinks to himself, "Wow." He wants to try too, expressing his eagerness to replicate the feat. Baek Sangun then provides a critical warning. While attempting to compress energy to form a sword, it is possible for the energy to break. Therefore, he stresses the importance of protecting the sword's integrity while trying to emulate it with one's energy. He reassures Woo Mun that if the sword is strong and well-made, he should have less to worry about during the process. Woo Mun acknowledges Baek Sangun's advice and mentally prepares to apply this newfound knowledge. After the demonstration and guidance, Baek Sangun announces his intention to leave. Woo Mun calls out to Baek Sangun just as he is about to leave, asking him to share his name. Baek Sangun introduces himself, saying, "My name is Baek Sangun. We'll run into each other quite often." Woo Mun is taken aback upon hearing this name, indicating its significance. Before leaping away, Baek Sangun reminds Woo Mun that in the Murim, it is forbidden to reveal one's magong, inner energy, to others, cautioning him that not everyone would be as open as he has been. Once Baek Sangun departs, the realization hits Woo Mun like a wave. He recognizes Baek Sangun as Jonghuang Baek Sangun, one of the Kian Mupalwang, which means he is one of the 9 greatest warriors in the world. This acknowledgement of Baek Sangun's legendary status overwhelms Woo Mun, who reflects on the honor of having received guidance from such a renowned figure. He recalls that he was also assisted by Gwaechangmi Jiangheng, another significant warrior, further emphasizing the magnitude of the people he has encountered. With the understanding of Baek Sangun's identity, Woo Mun anticipates the possibility of meeting both him and Gwaechangmi at Goryangpong during their journey. As he contemplates this, Woo Mun dedicates himself to studying the complete guide to martial arts. He immerses himself in learning about Nagong, inner energy, and Hyoldo, the pathways through which energy flows, discovering that the concepts he had learned from a significant painting align perfectly with the principles outlined in the manual. This realization fills him with awe regarding the mysterious nature of Hyoldo. Suddenly, a guard approaches Woo Mun and asks if he is Song Woo Mun. Upon confirmation, the guard informs him that Mistress Yun Si-hyun has requested his presence. This announcement piques Woo Mun's curiosity, and he wonders why she would want to see him. When they arrive at Yun Si-hyun's location, the guard announces his arrival. He has brought him. Yun Si-hyun expresses gratitude to the guard and turns her attention to Woo Mun. She explains him why he has been called, explaining that the horse carriage driver has fallen ill and can no longer fulfill his duties. She requests Woo Mun to take the driver's place. Woo Mun is surprised yet excited at this unexpected opportunity. The thought of driving for Yun Si-hyun feels like an honor to him. As Woo Mun readies himself to serve as Yun Si-hyun's chariot driver, he reflects on her interest in him, contemplating whether it might be connected to his recent encounter with Baek Sangun. However, he quickly dismisses this notion, reasoning that it was unlikely anyone in Murim could recognize Baek Sangun's identity, as he had only learned it through Baek Sangun's own disclosure. In a surprising turn, Yun Si-hyun asks for his name, catching Woo Mun off guard. He responds, "My name is Song Woo Mun." This prompts her to inquire about the meaning behind his name. Woo Mun explains that it translates to having foolish questions, a name bestowed upon him by a scholar who once stated therein. Intrigued, Yun Si-hyun questions why the scholar would give him such a name. Woo Mun elaborates, sharing that it signifies a sense of foolishness and ignorance, emphasizing the value of asking questions and making repeated efforts to understand deeper truths. Yun Si-hyun acknowledges the significance of asking seemingly silly questions in the pursuit of wisdom, yet she also warns that not all foolish inquiries will yield meaningful insights, raising the concern. What if they are mere silly questions? Woo Mun agrees, responding, exactly. However, I can only strive to be the Woo Mun, the silly question, that can ascend to enlightenment. Yun Si-hyun recognizes Woo Mun's journey from foolishness to wisdom, noting that while he may have lived as a fool for a long time, his growth indicates he has surpassed much of his previous ignorance. Woo Mun feels grateful for her kind words and reflects on her warmth, which contrasts with his initial impressions of her demeanor. Feeling a newfound sense of camaraderie, Woo Mun bravely asks Yun Si-hyun if she has a dream. Her expression shifts to one of somberness as she shares her aspiration to take control of her own life and make independent decisions. She articulates a desire to become the owner of her own destiny. Woo Mun reflected on her dream of becoming the owner of her own life, noting that it is a desire shared by many. Yun Si-hyun, however, expressed doubt about the feasibility of her dream, stating that it felt absurdly unreal. She shared that her current wish was for her father, who lay in a coma, to wake up and for her family's declining status to be restored. She added that she hoped for success on their journey to Seoul, showcasing her deep emotional investment in her family's well-being. Resonating with her sentiments, Woo Mun shares that his own mother is also ill, emphasizing the similarities in their situations. Yun Si-hyun responds with empathy, comments that they are very similar, which establishes a bond between them, grounded in their shared struggles. Their conversation is interrupted when the wagon hits a rock, causing it to shake. In that moment, a little tiger cub, hidden in Woo Mun's clothes, leaps onto his shoulder. Yun Si-hyun is delighted and curious about a cute creature, asking if it's a tiger and inquiring about its origins. Her excitement is palpable, and the cub's stomach growls, underscoring its hunger. Woo Mun explains that he found the cub while walking in the mountains a few days prior. He tells her it had recently lost its mother and was alone, invoking a sense of concern for the cub's well-being. Yun Si-hyun, clearly fond of the animal, asks what it primarily eats, and Woo Mun reassures her that the cub can eat anything. She responds promptly by offering it some food, reflecting her nurturing nature. As they continue their journey, the atmosphere shifts when the guard announces their arrival at Goryangpyeong. Woo Mun looks around in awe, exclaiming, "Finally, they arrived. Wow, it's enormous. Just a few moments ago, they were surrounded by vast plains, and here we are among massive crowds of people." As they arrived in Goryangpyeong, Yun Si-hyun explained to Woo Mun the significance of the upcoming martial arts match between Baek Sang-gun and Gwae Changmi. She highlighted how renowned both figures were, emphasizing the gravity of the event that had drawn countless strong warriors and spectators to witness the confrontation. "It's a rare opportunity to see a match between the two greatest masters," she noted, suggesting that it was only natural for the best to gather for such a momentous occasion. Woo Mun reflected on Baek Sang-gun, recalling their previous encounters and considering him an extraordinary person, albeit an uninvited traveler. He felt conflicted about whom to cheer for, recognizing that even though he hadn't met Gwae Changmi, he owed his life to him. After their conversation, Yun Si-hyun handed the cub back to Woo Mun and informed him that their party would only be staying in Goryangpyeong for 2 days, allowing him some free time to explore. She expresses his fondness for a creature and asks Woo Mun for its name. Woo Mun admits he hasn't chosen one yet. Yun Si-hyun proposes the name Becca, meaning white tooth. Woo Mun questions this, seeking clarification, and Yun Si-hyun reasons because the creature's fur is white. However, Woo Mun then jumps off the carriage, suggesting that the name should actually be Una, meaning silver tooth, as he has heard that the creature's fur will change to a grayish color when it matures. Yun Si-hyun accepted this name. Appreciating its appropriateness for the cub's future appearance, she expressed her gratitude before taking her leave. As he walked away, guard Jo Moo-jae inquired about Yun Si-hyun's interest in Woo Mun, questioning why she had taken a liking to the innkeeper boy. Yun Si-hyun responded that it was merely a casual conversation with a bright-eyed person, intended to relieve some of her anxiety. Jo Moo-jae asks about a person with bright eyes, referring to Woo Mun. prompting Yun Si-hyun to express her newfound sense of ease, attributing it to that individual. She reflects on the importance of not allowing others to undermine her because of her gender, emphasizing the need for confidence. Yun Si-hyun is determined to pursue a deal that would help the Libi family regain its previous standing and restore its former glory. In stark contrast, Woo Mun was overwhelmed by the vibrant, chaotic atmosphere of Goryeo. It was his first experience in such a bustling city, and he found himself lost amid the crowd. He don't know where to look. His excitement quickly turned to confusion and anxiety when two women approached him, each vying for his attention. One flirtatiously invited him to join her, while the other claimed him first, calling him master. Flustered by their advances, Woo Mun was left bewildered, asking what they were doing. In the midst of this commotion, Woo Mun caught sight of his brother, Woo Kong, who immediately turned away upon seeing him. This reaction puzzled Woo Mun, as he wondered why his brother appeared eager to avoid him. Meanwhile, Woo Mun faced criticism from fellow students of the Wasan martial arts sect, who accused him of tarnishing the warrior's reputation by associating with courtesans. Suddenly, a figure in a black cloak strode past, drawing the attention of Woo Kang's group. One of the students recognized him as Gwaeang Changmi Jiangheng, a feared and renowned warrior. He warned the others not to provoke him, as his wrath was known to be deadly. This recognition instilled a sense of dread in Woo Kong, who felt both fear and awe at the sight of such a powerful figure, reflecting on how Gwaeang Changmi lived up to his formidable reputation. As Gwaeang Changmi stopped directly in front of Woo Mun, it shocked Woo Kong, who wondered why such a fearsome warrior would pause before his brother. Still unaware of the tension, Woo Mun innocently asked, "Who is he?" This intensified Woo Kang's anxiety. He feared that Gwaeang Changmi might punish Woo Mun for engaging with the courtesans, recalling ominous tales of warriors who had faced dire consequences for similar actions. The atmosphere thickened with tension as Gwaeang Changmi stared intently at Woo Mun, leaving everyone in a state of suspense, anxious about the impending interaction and its potential fallout. Woo Kong is confused and frustrated as he notices his brother, Woo Mun, in a place he never expected, observing him nervously as he interacts with Gwaeang Changmi. Woo Kong wonders why his brother is there, his thoughts filled with suspicion and annoyance, especially since Woo Mun had been causing trouble at home. As Gwaeang Changmi raises his hand, Woo Kong fears getting involved, knowing the consequences could be deadly. Despite his concerns, Woo Mun remains focused on Gwaeang Changmi, who then unexpectedly acknowledges him, saying he's curious to see what Woo Mun will become in the future. Woo Mun, confused by the comment, asks for clarification, and at that moment, Woo Kong freezes, trying to understand Gwaeang Changmi's intentions. Woo Mun, realizing the identity of the man before him, nervously asks if he is, in fact, Gwaeang Changmi, to which Gwaeang Changmi responds cryptically, suggesting that they cannot speak freely due to the number of onlookers. Woo Mun, still anxious, thanks Gwaeang Changmi for saving his life. Gwaeang Changmi dismisses it as no big deal, walking away and leaving Woo Mun to reflect on the strange encounter. As Gwaeang Changmi walks off, the crowd murmurs, speculating about the connection between him and Woo Mun. Some are confused about why Woo Mun seemed to act like he knew Gwaeang Changmi personally, while others suggest that Woo Mun might have simply been warned to stay away from the red light district. Meanwhile, Woo Kong remains frustrated and perplexed. He initially thought there was more to the situation, but soon realizes that he had worried for nothing. His thoughts shift to his brother's behavior, growing more irritated by the fact that Woo Mun, who has been causing turmoil in their family, is now also mingling in places like the Jisiang's district, further adding to Woo Kang's frustration and anger towards him. Woo Mun and Woo Kong silently part ways, their mutual anger and frustration evident in their expressions. Though neither speaks, the tension between them is palpable. As Woo Mun walks away, bitterness lingers in his thoughts. That fool of a brother, he muses. Just because I've played the fool all these years, he now acts as if he doesn't even know me? Later that night, the emotions boil over as Woo Mun returns to his tent, still stewing over the encounter. His mind replays the moment, amplifying his disappointment. Sung Woo Kong, that jerk. I wanted to see him for so long, and this is how he treats me? Can't even acknowledge me in public? Sure, I was weak and made mistakes, but still, his frustration peaks as he punches his mat and shouts, "That was cruel of him." After all this time, not even a simple nod of recognition? Nothing? Feeling defeated, he mutters, "I don't know. Maybe I should just sleep." But sleep doesn't come easily. Woo Mun sits up abruptly, determination replacing his earlier despair. No, this is no time to sleep. I need to change. I need to become the kind of brother Wukong can take pride in. Inspired by his newfound resolve, Woo Mun grabs the martial arts book given to him by Baek Sang-gun and slams it down in front of him. Letting out a deep breath, he clears his mind. Enough self-pity. Focus. Today, I met the person who saved my life. Someone so respected that he's at the center of attention here in Goryeo Pyong. And he recognized me. That means something. I need to rise above my past. I'm not the fool I once was. Driven by purpose, Woo Mun flips through the book, absorbing its teachings. His mind churns with ideas. I only know a single inner-duty martial arts technique, one sword fighting style, and a basic martial arts move. But what if I create my own techniques? He considers combining the methods he's learned so far. The strong wind movement would pair perfectly with Jang Beeb's palm techniques. I could call it storm winds of the palm. As his thoughts expand, so does his ambition. What about merging the torrential rain with the flying method? No, that would work better with a different approach. I could create something like the torrential rain flying movement. Woo Mun spends the entire night mentally creating the technique storm winds of the palm, using the Jang Beeb principles from the martial arts guide. His artistic background, developed from years of studying paintings, enables him to visualize and rehearse movements in his mind. Despite his dedication and focus, he struggles to fully master the technique before dawn. As morning breaks, the long-awaited showdown between Baek Sang-gun and Gwaeang Changmi draws a crowd, the atmosphere alive with anticipation and the steady rhythm of rolling drums. Amidst the spectators, Woo Mun stands in the crowd, reflecting on the significance of the day. Spotting his brother Wukong across the fighting stage, their eyes meet briefly. Woo Mun, still bitter, quickly looks away as though he hasn't seen him. The slight angers Wukong, who takes note of his brother's defiance. Meanwhile, Mu Jae updates Yun Si-hyun about their business failures, reporting that they were unable to make any profitable deals. Yun Si-hyun laments that even an appeal to the 15th-ranked fighter was rejected. She broods silently, frustrated by their declining fortunes, longing for someone willing to collaborate with her. She feels confident in her abilities to excel, but wonders how her family fell to such a low point. Her thoughts are interrupted as Gwaeang Changmi arrives, immediately capturing the crowd's attention. Gasps and excited murmurs ripple through the audience. There he is, Gwaeang Changmi. Look at that tussar silk. It's made from centuries-old silk thread. What a rare sight. I can't believe we're seeing him in person. This is unbelievable. But where is Baek Sang-gun? Why hasn't he shown up yet? The tension in the air thickens as the crowd eagerly awaits the clash between these two renowned figures. Woo Mun stands among the crowd, captivated by Gwaeang Changmi's presence. Even as Gwaeang Changmi remains still, Woo Mun can feel the overwhelming aura of his strength, silently radiating power. After a long hour of waiting, Baek Sang-gun finally makes his entrance. With his trademark confidence and a playful tone, he calls out to Gwaeang Changmi, "You! It's been ages, you little brat." The crowd erupts into whispers. Baek Sang-gun is finally here. Did he really keep Gwaeang Changmi waiting for an entire hour? How is he still so youthful at over 100 years old? Maybe once you've reached the absolute summit, age no longer matters. Despite the crowd's excitement, Woo Mun watches nervously, reflecting on Baek Sang-gun's demeanor. The unnamed traveler, no, Baek Sang-gun. Even in such a critical situation, he remains so casual. Suddenly, Baek Sang-gun's gaze locks onto Woo Mun in the crowd. Without moving his lips, Woo Mun hears his voice directly in his mind. "So, you're here, little brother. This is a rare opportunity. Watch carefully. Focus on two things, distance and breath." Woo Mun freezes, stunned. I can hear Baek Sang-gun's voice in my head. Is this what thrill feels like? Baek Sang-gun continues his telepathic guidance. I will try to close the distance between us, while Gwaeang Changmi will attempt to disrupt my breathing and maintain space. Pay close attention. Our fight will be an invaluable lesson. Grateful and determined, Woo Mun thinks, understood. Thank you, Baek Sang-gun. Returning his focus to Gwaeang Changmi, Baek Sang-gun flashes a confident grin and taunts. All right, rookie. Are you ready to go? Gwaeang Changmi confidently declared that he was no longer a rookie, having achieved everything Baek Sang-gun once demanded of him. He claimed to have reached the absolute summit and gained a level of fame rivaling even the Keon Yupawang. Baek Sang-gun's thoughts drifted to a memory from decades ago, when Gwaeang Changmi, then a young and reckless fighter in his 20s, had been left gravely injured after a battle. Covered in blood, Gwaeang Changmi had insisted he could still fight, despite his dire state. In that moment, Baek Sangun had questioned him, asking whether his naive and impulsive nature had changed. Gwaeang Chami had been like an anxious hedgehog, quick to lash out at anyone. Despite his injuries, Gwaeang Chami had stubbornly vowed to continue fighting. Baek Sangun, however, had dismissed him with a faint smile, saying that Gwaeang Changmi would need to achieve the absolute summit and become as renowned as him before daring to challenge him again. Continuing the fight at that point, Baek Sangun had said, would mean lowering himself to Gwaeang Chami's level. Furious and humiliated, Gwaeang Chami had shouted after him, but Baek Sangun had already walked away. Now, in the present, Baek Sangun acknowledged the passage of 30 years and the transformation Gwaeang Chami had undergone. He admitted that Gwaeang Chami had grown into a more composed and dignified individual through numerous trials. Gwaeang Chami confirmed this, adding that it had been 20 years since Baek Sangun had temporarily retired because of certain past conflicts between them. At the mention of this incident, Baek Sangun's demeanor turned cold and serious. He sternly warned Gwaeang Chami not to bring it up again. Gwaeang Chami dramatically revealed a child strapped to his back as he cast aside his cloak, silencing the crowd's anticipation with the sharp retort. If that's what you want, then why don't you just shut your mouth? The child dismounted from his back, took the discarded cloak with care, and moved into the audience. There, the child planted a wooden stick into the ground and hung the cloak over it, creating an almost ceremonial display. The gathered crowd erupted into astonished whispers. A child was hidden beneath that silk cloak? Who could that child be? Woo Mun, caught off guard like the rest, silently wondered, who is that child? Breaking the tension, Gwaeang Chami turned to the audience and made a bold proclamation. That's my son. Don't you dare lay a finger on him. The revelation sent shockwaves through the crowd. People whispered in disbelief. Gwaeang Chami has a son? This is shocking. I thought he had no one in his life. In response, Baek Sangun telepathically addressed the surrounding martial artists, issuing a warning. No one is to harm this child. Be cautious. He then turned back to Gwaeang Chami with a smirk and taunted. When did you find time to father a child? It seems the old adage is true. A fair face may hide a foul heart. Seething, Gwaeang Chami snapped, enough with the small talk. Let's fight. Baek Sangun chuckled and replied with a confident grin. Interesting. Very well, let's begin. But to me, you're still just an ignorant puppy. Gwaeang Chami began his assault with a powerful leap, launching his spear with devastating force toward Baek Sangun. The spear slammed into the stage, shattering the ground, as Baek Sangun narrowly avoided the attack with a swift dash to the side. Unfazed, Baek Sangun smirked and teased. Aren't you going a little too hard too soon? Gwaeang Chami landed smoothly, retrieving his embedded spear, and immediately unleashed a series of rapid, aggressive thrusts. Baek Sangun observed the intensity of the strikes and remarked, starting with the Changki already? Then I suppose it's time I start playing seriously. Channeling his ki, Baek Sangun created an enormous, glowing hand of energy that intercepted and neutralized Gwaeang Chami's relentless attacks. The audience was stunned. A nervous voice murmured, he's countering Gwaeang Chami's Changki with his Janki, that they're not human. The sheer amount of energy they're wielding is beyond comprehension. Despite Baek Sangun's defense, Gwaeang Chami pressed on with a relentless barrage of spear strikes. Baek Sangun adeptly dodged and blocked, but their clashing energies sent waves of power rippling through the surroundings. Sparks and embers flew into the crowd, causing a stir of panic. Run! Everyone run! Someone shouted. If this is how they're holding back, the real fight will be far more dangerous. Woo Mun, observing the chaos, felt all mixed with trepidation. They've been holding back this whole time? Their energy is so immense it's making even us spectators tremble from a distance. Meanwhile, the battle intensified. Gwaeang Changmi sneered through gritted teeth. Didn't I tell you I'm going all in? Is this really all you've got? Baek Sangun, with a playful chuckle, remarked, I'm just messing with you, before releasing a powerful thunder attack infused with his ki. Though Gwaeang Changmi managed to block the strike, the unleashed energy spilled beyond the stage, striking parts of the audience and causing injuries. Alarmed by the chaos, the same onlooker from earlier yelled, the after effects are reaching us all the way here. Stay alert, everyone. Amid the growing tension, Woo Mun sharpened his focus, channeling his ki into his eyes to closely study the battle. He observed every move, analyzing with fascination. This is entirely different from the lessons I learned through the illusion in the painting. Look at him. He's covering immense distances with a single breath, halting his advance, and then closing in again before stopping once more. His control and precision are extraordinary. I can't miss a single moment of this. The ferocity of the clash escalated, with the energy radiating from Baek Sang-gun and Gwaeang Changmi reaching explosive levels. Woo Mun felt his understanding of martial arts expand with every collision of their ki. As the fight intensified, the audience began retreating from the stage, seeking safety from the uncontrollable energy. Amid the chaos, a dark figure in a black cloak advanced toward the stage, shoving aside anyone in his path. One of the displaced individuals turned angrily, shouting, "What's your problem? Move, you annoying idiot." The cloaked figure slowly revealed his face, a sinister grin spreading across his scarred visage. He spoke in a chilling tone, "Don't provoke me, or you will die." The angry man froze, his expression shifting to fear. Stammering, he asked, "Wait, no way. Are you Yodik Meringue, the wicked and venomous king?" The name sent ripples of terror through the crowd. Nearby onlookers murmured anxiously, "Did he just say Yodik Meringue? That's really him. How is that wicked man here? Don't get caught up with him, run." As the crowd scattered in panic, Woo Mun turned toward the commotion, his chest tightening. Seeing Yodik Meringue, he thought with alarm, "What the hell? Why is he here of all times?" As panic spread through the crowd, they fled in terror from Yodik Meringue, who unleashed his dark energy, freezing those in his vicinity. People near him found themselves paralyzed, their bodies immobile as they screamed in desperation, trapped in fear for their lives. Yodik Meringue, grinning with disdain, spoke, "I've tried to live quietly, but I suppose this is inevitable because of trash like you." A notorious figure, Yodik Meringue was born into the Dokuk clan and exiled for his heinous crimes. He had seduced the daughter of the influential Saekyeondang family and learned the deadly art of poison. His greatest creation was the man, a lethal toxin capable of melting anything in its path, transforming him into a terrifying figure. As the man spread, those caught within its range began to melt, their agonizing screams filling the air. Observing the battle between the great warriors, Yodik Meringue commented with amusement, "Watching these warriors fight, I thought it would stir something within me. But I see now this is the path I'm meant to take." The victims of the man cried in terror, urging others to run. "Yodik Meringue is here. If you're caught in the man, you'll die." Yodik Meringue laughed darkly. "Now that things have escalated, let's see just how far my powers can reach. Can they touch Baek Sang-gun and Gwaeang Changmi?" His laughter reverberated through the air as the crowd cowered in fear. Among the horrified onlookers, Woo Mun felt a deep sense of shock. What kind of monster is this? He has no regard for human life. His concentration was broken by the crowd rushing toward him, shouting, "The curse is spreading fast, run." Realizing the urgency of the situation, Woo Mun's mind raced. Is there any way to stop this? Then, he remembered Baek Sang-gun's earlier palm technique. Yes, the winds of the palm, those can save the people. Drawing on the winds from the landscape painting, Woo Mun focused his energy. "I'll channel these winds along the lines of the painting and use the storm winds of the palm to push the curse away from the people and back toward Yodik Meringue." With a powerful motion, Woo Mun unleashed a gust of wind, gathering the man into a concentrated force, directing it back at Yodik Meringue. Surrounded by the very poison he had created, Yodik Meringue was caught off guard. "What is this? How is my man returning to me?" Woo Mun, controlling the winds with precision, thought to himself, "I'm guiding the curse into one place." Yodik Meringue was swiftly overtaken by his own poison, and in a state of disbelief, he realized he had no time to use the antidote as blood poured from his eyes, nose, and mouth. Woo Mun, however, continued to direct the poison back at Yodik Meringue, ensuring he couldn't escape. Eventually, Yodik Meringue disappeared, consumed by his own man. The crowd, shocked by the events, whispered in confusion, wondering who had directed the strong winds that turned the poison back on Yodik Meringue. One person, in awe, declared it as divine justice, attributing the victory to a higher power. Woo Mun, though drenched in sweat, quietly acknowledged to himself that it was his doing, though he felt it was better to remain unnoticed. Meanwhile, Gwaeang Changmi's child, seemingly unaffected, remarked on his survival. Earlier, as Baek Sang-gun and Gwaeang Changmi were engaged in combat, Baek Sang-gun acknowledged Gwaeang Changmi's skill with a comment. "That wasn't a half-bad move, but could you try a little harder?" In response, Gwaeang Changmi warned, "Let's see how chatty you'll be in a minute," before unleashing a series of aggressive thrust attacks. Baek Sang-gun easily dodged them, offering a compliment. You're doing well, I see. But during the fight, Guiyang Changmi's attention was drawn to the chaos nearby, where he realized his son was in danger from Yodak Meringue, but feared it would be too late by the time he could reach him. Beck Sangun sarcastically commented, "Where is he looking at a time like this?" Then, as he observing the same disturbance and realizing the danger. In the present, both fighters stopped their battle and rushed toward Guiyang Changmi's son. Guiyang Changmi asks his son if he is all right, to which his son replies that he is fine. Beck Sangun, feeling demotivated, asked if they should continue the fight, to which Guiyang Changmi suggested postponing it. He proposed that the next time, it would just be the two of them. Guiyang Changmi then turned to his son, saying, "Let's go," and his son immediately climbed onto his back. The two prepared to leave, with Guiyang Changmi donning his cloak. Woo Mun, watching the scene unfold, felt disappointed, wishing he could have seen more of the fight, but lamented how Yodak Meringue had ruined everything. His thoughts were interrupted when Guiyang Changmi threw a bag of money at him, thanking him for saving his son. Woo Mun, surprised, realized Guiyang Changmi knew what he had done. He tried to refuse, saying that Guiyang Changmi had already saved his life in the past, but Guiyang Changmi insisted, explaining that his son's life was more valuable than Woo Mun's and that the money meant little to him. Woo Mun thanked him, and Guiyang Changmi, before leaving, remarked, "If fate allows, we'll meet again." As the two warriors disappeared, the crowd murmured in confusion, questioning why Guiyang Changmi had spoken to Woo Mun and why both Beck Sangun and Guiyang Changmi had left so abruptly. Woo Mun reflected on the experience, feeling fortunate to have witnessed their fight, especially the use of the strong winds of the palm and Guiyang Changmi's Changqi, which he believed would help him in his own sword training. Meanwhile, Wu Kong, observing from a distance, wondered why Guiyang Changmi had interacted with his brother, feeling confused and unsettled by the encounter. That night, Yun Si Hyen expressed relief to Woo Mun for surviving Yodak Meringue's Mon, acknowledging the close call. Woo Mun mentioned his luck and asked if she had secured anyone, to which she sadly replied, "No." Despite this, Yun Si Hyen resolved to continue doing what she could until the end, and she suggested that, since it was the last night, Woo Mun should make the most of it and enjoy himself. He thanked her in response. Later, as Woo Mun practiced in the quiet of the night, he focused on refining his blade aura. Drawing inspiration from Guiyang Changmi's spear aura, Woo Mun imagined focusing it even more intensely, like the deep strokes of tree roots in a Shan Sui painting. After further concentration, he successfully formed the concentrated blade aura, smiling at his achievement. He felt grateful for having such renowned teachers, Beck Sangun, Guiyang Changmi, and Mujin Wanmayong, and appreciated the progress he had made. At that moment, Beck Sangun appeared, laughing and complimenting Woo Mun's rapid progress. Woo Mun, surprised to see him, acknowledged the effectiveness of their earlier fight in helping him refine his technique. Beck Sangun then joked that, if not for Yodak Meringue's interference, he would have shown Woo Mun Guiyang Changmi's vulnerability. Woo Mun agreed, praising Guiyang Changmi's incredible spear aura, which had also helped him develop his own blade aura. Beck Sangun asked Woo Mun about his plans, suggesting that watching expert battles could be either helpful or harmful, depending on how one studied them. He then asked if Woo Mun was returning home, to which Woo Mun confirmed that the convoy was leaving that day. Beck Sangun, surprising Woo Mun, said he would accompany him, explaining that he needed to visit his daughter. Woo Mun was shocked, as he had heard Beck Sangun had no children, and the daughter he once had was said to have died long ago. Beck Sangun then mentioned Woo Mun's brother and asked if he was coming too. This further surprised Woo Mun, who asked if Beck Sangun knew his brother. Beck Sangun casually replied that his daughter might recognize him if he came with his grandchildren. When Woo Mun expressed confusion, Beck Sangun pointed at him and declared that Woo Mun was his grandson. Woo Mun was taken aback, questioning how that could be true since his mother had never mentioned it. He also asked if Beck Sangun was truly the nameless traveler. Laughing, Beck Sangun teased Woo Mun for still calling him by that name despite claiming to be his grandfather and suggested that his mother should have taught him better manners. Woo Mun thought to himself, my mother's name is Beck Jin, and his name is Beck Sangun. They both share the same surname. That means my mother is actually Beck Sangun's daughter. Beck Sangun shared that when Woo Mun's mother was young, she lived with him, but due to his nomadic lifestyle, he sent her to the 100 Iron Blade House, thinking it would be a better environment for her. He also pointed out that her health was frail. Woo Mun confirmed this, agreeing that his mother's condition was indeed weak. Beck Sangun revealed that as Jin grew older, the 100 Iron Blade House pressured her into an arranged marriage, which she refused, valuing her independence just like he did. As a result, she left the house, prompting the family to send trackers after her to protect their reputation. During this time, Baek Sang-gun was unaware of the situation due to his travels, but later discovered that one of the trackers had accidentally caused severe internal injuries to Jin. Woo Mun reflected on this, realizing that it explained why his mother was often ill, yet still seemed so strong. Baek Sang-gun added that internal wounds only worsen if untreated, and since Jin couldn't heal herself at the time, there was nothing she could do to fix the damage. Woo Mun reflected on the revelation, realizing that Baek Sang-gun was actually his grandfather. However, he wondered if his mother would accept this fact. Baek Sang-gun, noticing Woo Mun's hesitation, chuckled and suggested, "Let's hold off on the formalities until we see your mother. It'll be better for you too, right?" Still nervous, Woo Mun responded with a simple, "Yes, grandfather." As Baek Sang-gun moved away, he mentioned, "There's still time before the group leaves, so let's go find your brother first." Woo Mun asked if Wukong knew about this, and Baek Sang-gun revealed that he hadn't told him yet, choosing to inform Woo Mun first because he was the older sibling. Woo Mun nodded, thinking to himself that this revelation would likely shock Wukong even more. Later, at the Wasen Group's lodge, the three most powerful rising stars, known as the Heavenly Flame Trio, had gathered. They were the youngest in history to master both the 24-hand Plum Blossom sword style and the Violet Dawn Heavenly Art, earning them the title of the youngest Plum Blossom sword masters. Among them was Sung Wukong, who, unlike the other two, came from no notable background or wealth. The other two, Yucho, the eldest son of Weizen's most prestigious family, and Hien Mukiel, the son of Weizen's general, came from powerful lineages. While their skills were impressive, their fighting abilities didn't compare to Sung Wukong's, which created tension as their ambitions clashed with his growing prominence. As Wukong was preparing to leave, his fellow student Bai, who also preparing to leave. Nervously, Wukong asked if Bai was ready to go, to which Bai quickly nodded and left. From a distance, Yucho observed the interaction and smirked, causing Wukong to reflect on his status as Weizen's rising star, noting how people often avoided him. He then wondered about his brother, thinking he should check on him and find out what he and Guiyang Chami had discussed. Just as Wukong was lost in thought, Baek Sang-gun suddenly burst into the lodge, loudly declaring, "My grandson should be here. I wonder where he is." The room fell silent in shock, and whispers quickly spread among the people present. "Why is he here? Did he just say grandson? He has a grandson here." Baek Sang-gun was approached by an older man named Kyeolji, who asked why he was there. Baek Sang-gun recognized him and teasingly asked if he still had the same issue from his youth. Kyeolji, now in his 50s and irritated, insisted that he was no longer a boy and to forget about the past incident. Baek Sang-gun laughed it off and continued teasing him. The students around them watched nervously as Kyeolji tried to remain composed and asked about Baek Sang-gun's business. Baek Sang-gun, still with a grin, explained that he was there to see his grandson. Kyeolji, skeptical of his claim, questioned if it was another one of Baek Sang-gun's jokes. Baek Sang-gun, becoming serious, clarified that his daughter was still alive and her son was present, confirming the truth of his statement. Kyeolji is taken aback when Baek Sang-gun reveals that his daughter is alive, which he had been secretly keeping from him. The shock intensifies as Baek Sang-gun casually mentions that he has become a grandfather, a statement that catches Kyeolji off guard, especially considering Baek's youthful appearance. Kyeolji, still processing the information, asks if Baek Sang-gun's grandson is present. Baek then gestures toward Wukong, introducing him as his grandson, which leaves Wukong stunned and confused. Baek Sang-gun's revelation causes further shock, especially among the Heavenly Flame Trio, who were unaware of this connection and find it hard to believe. Wukong, unable to fully grasp the situation, confirms that both he and his brother, Woo Mun, are Baek Sang-gun's grandchildren. Baek Sang-gun asks Kyeolji for permission to take Wukong aside for a conversation. Kyeolji gives his approval for Baek Sang-gun to take Wukong aside. As he observes Woo Mun, Kyeolji is impressed by the strength of Woo Mun and decides to remember his name. He's also intrigued by the revelation that Wukong is Baek Sang-gun's grandson, finding the situation increasingly interesting. After stepping outside, Baek Sang-gun further clarifies the situation to Wukong. Wukong, still uncertain, asks if the revelation is true. Baek Sang-gun reassures him with a chuckle, confirming that even Woo Mun believes him. Wukong, accepting this truth, reflects internally on the situation, including his mother's condition, and comes to terms with the fact that he and his brother are indeed Baek Sang-gun's grandchildren. Baek Sang-gun, eager to meet his daughter, instructs them to notify their clans and prepare to leave. Both Wukong and Wu Mun agree to the plan. Later, Wu Mun returns and is confronted by his superior, who scolds him for his absence. Wu Mun apologizes, explaining that he had urgent matters to attend to. Meanwhile, Chai Yongrong, noticing Wu Mun, recalls a past encounter where he was injured. He remembers that Wu Mun had been with someone who had caused him harm, leading him to connect him with a series of troubling events, including the disappearance of Master Yu Moonguang and the worsening of his condition. Chai Yongrong, still harboring resentment, links Wu Mun to these past misfortunes, particularly the missed opportunity to witness a critical confrontation between Baek Sangun and Guiyang Changmi. Yongrong steps forward, asking about the commotion. The superior acknowledges his arrival, and Yongrong begins to plot revenge against Wu Mun, whom he refers to as the bad boy. He harbors resentment, planning to teach him a lesson to provoke the appearance of a man with lion-like hair, who Yongrong believes could help him. Yongrong is confident in his own strength, thinking no one could defeat him, especially with the blue-red dual spears he had hired. When Yongrong demands an explanation, Wu Mun's superior informs him that Wu Mun had disappeared without notice previously and had done the same again this morning, while others were working hard. Yongrong dismisses Wu Mun's absence with a sneer, insulting both him and the lion-haired man, whom he considers a nuisance. Wu Mun, shocked by Yongrong's disrespect, questions him, and Yongrong responds rudely, calling him a bad boy. Wu Mun, standing up for himself, replies that he came to get paid for his work and is neither Yongrong's slave nor servant. He points out that even Lady Yun Si-hyun, whom Yongrong serves, doesn't treat him with such disrespect. This challenges Yongrong's authority, and in response, Yongrong becomes enraged, ordering his guards to punish Wu Mun, revealing his intent to use force when words fail. As the two guards move toward Wu Mun, he firmly warns them to stop, expressing his frustration with people who only care about their status. He threatens them with consequences if they take another step. The right guard sneers, dismissing Wu Mun as an inexperienced martial artist, while the left guard mocks him in a similar manner. Wu Mun responds coldly, reinforcing his warning. When one of the guards lunges at him with a spear, Wu Mun reacts swiftly, unleashing a powerful wind fury strike that knocks the guard off his feet, sending him crashing to the ground. The second guard is left shaken, questioning what just happened. Wu Mun briefly wonders if he went too far. Yongrong, observing from the sidelines, begins to question whether Wu Mun is actually a hidden expert, someone far more skilled than he appears. Wu Mun turns to the remaining guard, ready to teach him a lesson as well. Just before the situation escalates further, Yongrong intervenes, calling for a pause. He begins to prepare an apology when Yun Si-hyun enters, asking what's going on. Yongrong quickly regains his composure, claiming that Wu Mun had gone berserk and killed one of his hired men. Wu Mun protests, clarifying that he only knocked the guard out, not killed him. Yun Si-hyun then asks Wu Mun if he truly did it, and Wu Mun confirms, but insists that he only acted in self-defense after being attacked. Yongrong interrupts, downplaying the incident by saying the guard was just a hired hand who had already gone missing twice. He paints Wu Mun as the aggressor and turns to Wu Mun's superior for support. Reluctantly, the superior agrees with Yongrong's version of events. Wu Mun, shocked by the lie, confronts his superior, expressing disbelief that they would side with Yongrong's false narrative. Yun Si-hyun calmly asserts her trust in her own judgment, explaining that she has spoken to Wu Mun personally and believes he is not the type to act violently. Yongrong, now nervous, retorts, questioning why she would trust Wu Mun over him. Yun Si-hyun then turns to Wu Mun, asking if he has been hiding his strength. Wu Mun hesitates, about to explain himself, but is interrupted when Baek Sangun arrives, inquiring about the commotion. Yongrong is surprised to see Baek Sangun and remarks that his arrival is timely. Yun Si-hyun, sensing the tension, turns to Baek Sangun and asks why he's here. Yongrong mutters Baek Sangun's name in confusion. Just then, Jo Mu-jae, standing nearby, announces loudly that Baek Sangun is none other than Jang Hwang Baek Sangun. This revelation causes Yongrong to break into a cold sweat, unable to believe the truth. Jo Mu-jae firmly reassures him, claiming to have witnessed Baek Sangun's identity during a recent fight. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Yongrong immediately drops to his knees, apologizing profusely and begging for mercy, claiming he did not know Baek Sangun's true identity and promising never to disrespect him again. Baek Sangun, unamused by the dramatic display, asks why Yongrong is crying and pleading. Wu Mun, With a smirk, jokingly suggests that Baek Sangun must have used a shapeless chi on him to cause his reaction. Baek Sangun laughs, dismissing the idea, saying he would never use such tactics on someone he sees as an immature little puppy. Woo Mun then retorts, pointing out that Baek Sangun had indeed left a severe internal wound on a Kunlun group member in a previous encounter, referencing a past event where Baek Sangun had used his power to incapacitate Yu Mun Kwang. Baek Sangun chuckles as he recalls a previous encounter where he left a Kunlun group member severely wounded, admitting it was an enjoyable experience, but clarifying that he didn't do anything to Yang Rong this time. Despite this, Yang Rong continues to kneel and beg for mercy, crying and pleading for forgiveness, admitting his foolishness. In response, Baek Sangun uses his psychokinesis to lift Yang Rong effortlessly, commenting that it makes him feel more like a demon or bandit rather than Baek Sangun, which he finds unpleasant. When Yang Rong complains that his body won't respond, Baek Sangun grows irritated, calling him noisy, and quickly strikes Yang Rong's pressure points, causing him to collapse unconscious. Baek Sangun then turns to Woo Mun, expressing disappointment that Yang Rong is too weak to teach a proper lesson to, as any further punishment would likely break him. Woo Mun smirks and vows to repay Yang Rong for today's insult, planning to cripple him in the future. Baek Sangun laughs in approval, amused by Woo Mun's response. As Baek Sangun contemplates the future, he considers the possible consequences with the Kunlun group, reasoning that they are at fault and that if they complain, he can simply escalate the situation. He wonders if he should send Woo Mun to handle the matter instead of going himself, knowing that by the time this happens, Woo Mun should be strong enough to take on the task. Woo Mun, noticing Baek Sangun's smile, asks what he finds so funny. At that moment, Yun Si-hyun bows respectfully to Baek Sangun, introducing herself as the head of the noble Lee clan and expressing her great honor in meeting him. Baek Sangun observes her closely, noting that while she is clearly nervous, she doesn't tremble like others do, which he finds impressive. Acknowledging her introduction, Baek Sangun asks if the convoy is headed to Wonhan, to which Yun Si-hyun confirms, adding that it would be an immense honor for her if he accompanied them. Baek Sangun, impressed by her sharpness, reflects that her perceptiveness matches her beauty, as she quickly understands his underlying intention. He then explains that he is accompanying her as a form of repayment for a debt his grandson, Woo Mun, owes her. Yun Si-hyun bows again in gratitude, feeling that meeting Baek Sangun is a miraculous stroke of luck. However, her thoughts shift to Woo Mun, realizing that not only had he hidden his true strength, but he had also concealed his lineage as Baek Sangun's grandson. This revelation surprises her, especially since he had been the first person she had opened up to, aside from her family. Before she can ponder further, Baek Sangun interrupts, urging everyone to stop standing around and start the journey to Wonhan. Yun Si-hyun promptly agrees, ready to set off. After her initial shock, Yun Si-hyun invited Baek Sangun to ride in the wagon. Baek Sangun accepted the offer, remarking, "All right, I'll accept your offer and ride on the wagon." He then turned to Woo Kong and Woo Mun and said, "You two can keep walking. Young people need to experience hardship." Both brothers accepted without complaint, continuing on foot as the convoy moved forward. As they walked, Yun Si-hyun noticed Woo Mun carrying several bags and asked, "Why are you still carrying those bags?" Woo Mun replied, "I was hired for this job, so of course I'm carrying them. Or have I been fired for being late?" Surprised, Yun Si-hyun asked, "Does that mean you're planning to continue working for our convoy?" Woo Mun nodded firmly. "Yes, I need to finish what I've been assigned to do." A faint smile appeared on Yun Si-hyun's face as she thought to herself, "I knew it. There's no dishonesty in him. He must have had his reasons for keeping it hidden." Still, she protested, "But this won't do. I can't let Baek Sangun's grandson carry bags." Baek Sangun, reclining comfortably in the wagon, interjected without concern, "Forget about it. I don't care. Let him do as he wants. It's his first real job, so he should see it through to the end." Understanding his reasoning, Yun Si-hyun didn't push further. She reflected to herself, so much has changed in just one day. A convoy with Baek Sangun and his family, including his grandson, who's carrying bags. This is a turning point for Noble Lee's household. Things will never be the same. As night fell, the convoy halted to rest for the night. The porters, feeling more comfortable after the earlier events, gathered around Woo Mun to talk. One of them approached him and said, "Thanks for introducing yourself to us, Woo Mun. I was shocked to find out you're Baek Sangun's grandson. I don't even know if we should call you Woo Mun anymore." Woo Mun smiled warmly and reassured them, "Please don't mind. Just call me as you always have. I'm still Song Woo Mun. Treat me no differently." Another porter, impressed by Woo Mun's humility, said, I wouldn't expect any less of you, Woo Mun. You're humble and don't look down on us, even though you're Baek Sang-gun's grandson. A third porter added, yeah, you're kind and trustworthy. We're lucky to have someone like you around. Curious about Woo Mun's past, one porter asked, so, Woo Mun, did you always know Baek Sang-gun was your grandfather? Yun Si-hyun, who was nearby, overheard the question and turned her attention to Woo Mun, eager to hear his response. Woo Mun replied honestly, no, I had no idea. I only found out recently. I was just as shocked as you are when he told me. Hearing this, a smile formed on Yun Si-hyun's face as she thought to herself, I knew it. He didn't hide it from me on purpose. Meanwhile, Baek Sang-gun, who observes Yun Si-hyun's reaction to Woo Mun, reflects on his past considerations of making her his step-grandchild, but starts to think she may be more suited to being his disciple, indicating a shift in his thoughts about her. In the background, Woo Kong, who is focused on eating, notices his brother Woo Mun's changes and muses over the transformation, showing his awareness of the changes in Woo Mun's character. The next morning, as the convoy continued its journey, Woo Mun introduced his pet, Una, to the other porters. They were amazed, recognizing her as a rare Biko cub, which sparked admiration and surprise among them. Woo Mun, fondly looking at his pet, reassured her with a gentle comment, noting that she had been feeling down lately. He reflected that, as a Biko cub, Una had once been vulnerable, but now that her connection to Woo Mun, as Baek Sang-gun's grandson, was known, she was no longer a target for danger. However, Una suddenly stopped, her demeanor shifting as she growled lowly and ran back to Woo Mun in alarm. He, startled by her reaction, quickly asked what was wrong. Just as this occurred, Baek Sang-gun, sitting in his wagon, smirked knowingly, anticipating trouble. Yun Si-hyun, walking beside him, glanced at him in confusion, not fully understanding the situation. Woo Mun hurried toward Baek Sang-gun, informing him of the potential danger, and Baek Sang-gun calmly acknowledged the threat, confirming that they were indeed about to face some unwanted visitors. Woo Mun pointed ahead, alerting the group to the presence of a mysterious threat. Both Woo Kong and Yun Si-hyun tensed as they spotted a large group of people cloaked in black, wearing masks, standing in their path. Woo Kong, surprised by his brother's keen observation, thought it was impossible that Woo Mun had noticed the danger when he hadn't. Yun Si-hyun, shocked, froze in place, while her uncle Jo Moo-jae, sensing something off, voiced his concern, expressing a bad feeling about the situation. Baek Sang-gun, undeterred by the growing tension, swiftly jumped off his wagon, making it clear that they couldn't disrupt the convoy because of this threat. He instructed Woo Mun and Woo Kong to come with him and handle the situation. The two brothers immediately agreed, but Woo Kang's thoughts were filled with doubt, considering that Woo Mun had never formally trained in martial arts and wondering how he could possibly face so many enemies. Yun Si-hyun, worried, asked Baek Sang-gun if they needed assistance, but he laughed off the idea, dismissing their guards as bag carriers pretending to be warriors. He warned that her involvement would only increase casualties. Realizing that Baek Sang-gun had seen through that, Yun Si-hyun apologized, feeling embarrassed by her attempt to offer help. Baek Sang-gun then firmly instructed them to stay behind and not move, ensuring that they would handle the situation. Both Yun Si-hyun and Jo Moo-jae, though concerned, agreed to follow his orders. As Baek Sang-gun, followed by Woo Mun and Woo Kong, moved forward, he couldn't help but feel a mix of intrigue and amusement at the audacity of those who would dare target him. He said aloud, "Let's go, boys," as he led them forward with confidence. As they walked, Woo Mun smiled faintly, but before he could speak, Baek Sang-gun abruptly covered his nose, exclaiming in disgust at an overwhelming stench. He jokingly suggested that the smell might be from someone who had relieved themselves nearby, commenting that it was unbearable. Suddenly, laughter emerged from the nearby bushes, and a figure in a red cloak appeared. Baek Sang-gun continued his mocking commentary, connecting the smell to a notorious figure known as the Bloody Devil, humorously dubbing them feces piss. Woo Mun, unable to contain himself, burst out laughing at the ridiculous name, finding the situation comically absurd. However, Woo Kong, growing more anxious, realized the gravity of the situation. He recognized that the Bloody Devil was one of the new 6 great super warriors, feared martial artists on par with the greatest in the world. He was stunned by the fact that such a dangerous figure was now in front of them. At that moment, the Bloody Empress stepped forward, her presence striking terror into the air. As she approached, the trees and leaves around her seemed to bleed, adding to her eerie and menacing aura. As Woo Mun observed the bloody empress more closely, he was horrified to see the souls of her victims. Men, women, and even children, clinging to her, crying out in despair. Shocked by the sight, he asked, "Wait, are those the souls of the dead?" Baek Sangun, with a grim expression, confirmed his suspicion, revealing the depth of the bloody empress's cruelty. He explained that she was a vicious and merciless woman, responsible for the torment of countless lives. Woo Mun's attention was drawn to the faint shapes of children among the tortured souls, which deepened his shock and disgust. Baek Sangun solemnly acknowledged this grim reality, confirming that even children were among the victims. Woo Mun, tapping into the power of the unbreakable celestial master's immortal art, had unlocked an undeveloped ability called soul vision, though he hadn't fully mastered it. This divine Tao power granted him the ability to perceive glimpses of the spiritual realm, allowing him to witness the souls attached to the bloody empress. Filled with anger at the sight, Woo Mun charged forward, channeling his ki into his sword. As the blade glowed with icy energy, the bloody empress recognized his technique and noted that it was the Northern Ice Storm technique. She remained motionless as Woo Mun closed the distance, but with a casual flick of her left hand, she sent him flying backward with immense force, crashing into a distant tree. Wu Kong, alarmed by his brother's sudden defeat, rushed to his side. However, before he could reach him, Baek Sangun, with a confident smirk, turned to the bloody empress and mockingly commented, "What do you think, bloody cloud empress? Not bad for a little brat, right?" The bloody empress, surprised by the faint wound Woo Mun had inflicted with his blade ki, muttered in disbelief, "He wounded me. With just blade ki?" However, the wound quickly healed, disappearing as if it had never existed. Her expression darkened with rage, and she angrily remarked, "That brat dares to anger me." Baek Sangun, observing the rapid regeneration, chuckled and commented on her enhanced abilities, acknowledging her surpassing the limits of humanity. He taunted her, calling her a little puppy, and declared, "Let's play." The bloody empress, sneering at him, questioned, "Who the hell is that boy?" Baek Sangun shrugged off her question, seemingly unfazed. He then accused her of turning her back on Murim and becoming a mere servant to her new masters. With that, he charged at her without warning, declaring, "Let's end this." The bloody empress met his charge head-on, yelling, "Baek Sangun, I'll kill all of you," signaling that the battle between them was about to intensify. Meanwhile, Wu Kong reached his brother Woo Mun, who was struggling to get back on his feet after being thrown into the tree. Concerned, Wu Kong asked, "Are you all right?" Woo Mun, though visibly in pain, reassured him, "I'm fine," as he surrounded himself with a white aura. Moments later, his injuries healed, and he let out a deep breath. Wu Kong, astonished by the sight, exclaimed, "You healed yourself with inner energy? Something really has changed about you." Woo Mun, without elaborating, simply replied, "I don't have time to explain right now." At that moment, Baek Sangun's voice rang out in their minds, giving them urgent instructions. "I'll handle the bloody cloud empress. You two take care of the goons. If you don't hurry, the convoy will be wiped out." Wu Kong, still startled by the mental communication, asked that's grandfather's voice. As Woo Mun and Wu Kong sprinted back toward the convoy, Woo Mun cursed under his breath, realizing that the attackers were targeting the convoy. When they arrived, they were met with chaos. Enemy soldiers were mercilessly slaughtering the porters without sparing anyone. One of the attackers smirked, mentioning that the bloody Cloud Empress was dealing with the Palm Emperor, and that the two brothers should show up soon, hinting at the larger battle at play. Meanwhile, at one of the wagons, two enemy soldiers cornered Yun Si-hyun. One of them leered at her, commenting on her beauty and expressing surprise at finding such a gem in the convoy. The other soldier laughed and suggested they might have some fun with her before finishing their mission. Jo Mu-jae, barely able to stand due to his injuries, struggled to his feet and weakly shouted, "Don't you dare touch her." However, the first soldier sneered and shoved him back to the ground, mocking his efforts as mere posturing. The second soldier approached Yun Si-hyun, smirking and planning to seal her key channels to make her easier to deal with. With Yun Si-hyun feeling helpless and bracing herself for what was to come, Woo Mun appeared just in time. He sliced off the second soldier's arm with a clean strike of his blade, causing the severed limb to hit the ground with a spurt of blood. The soldier stumbled back in shock, and his companion, horrified, shouted, "Who the hell are you?" The injured soldier, clutching his stump, growled in rage, vowing revenge. "That brat cut off my arm. I'll kill him." Woo Mun, filled with fury, pointed his sword at the enemy soldiers and demanded, You bastards dare lay a hand on her? Yun Si Hyun, surprised by his protective stance, watched as he positioned himself between her and the attackers. She blushed, but Woo Mun's focus quickly shifted as he looked at the devastation around them. Woo Mun, feeling the weight of the loss, clenched his teeth. The sight of so many innocent lives lost, including those of kind-hearted porters like Mr. Moon and Mr. Cheon, who weren't warriors but simply good people, filled him with rage. His grip on his sword tightened as he shouted at the soldiers. "You're not people. You bastards have no right to take their lives." The soldiers mocked him, one of them jeering, "We can't hear you, little boy," while the other threatened that he will sever all his limbs. The cruelty of the attackers only fueled Woo Mun's resolve. Despite Woo Mun's determination, Yun Si Hyun, still shaken, called out to him, urging, "Woo Mun, these men are strong. You could die. You're not one of us. You don't have to risk your life." But Woo Mun, unwavering, replied with strong conviction, "No, I was hired by this convoy, and everyone who lost their lives were my comrades. I can't forgive them." His words caught Yun Si Hyun off guard as he charged forward, his blade gleaming with righteous fury. Meanwhile, on the other side of the battlefield, Baek Sangun was locked in combat with the Bloody Empress. She managed to pierce his stomach with her spear, sneering, "Palm Emperor Baek Sangun, it seems your age has finally caught up with you." Baek Sangun's voice trembled in pain, but then a sly smile crossed his face as his body vanished and reappeared behind her. With renewed confidence, he taunted, "That's my line." Fooled by such simple trickery. The Bloody Empress, with a sly smile, turned around and taunted, "Who's been fooled now?" Baek Sangun, looking down, noticed that his feet were bound by tendrils of darkness. With a faint smirk, he acknowledged, "Thinking one step ahead, I see. Living up to your name?" The Bloody Empress responded coldly, signaling the end of their exchange. "That'll be the end of your chit-chat." Baek Sangun, undeterred, calmly enveloped his palm in a bright aura of ki, signaling his intent to get serious. He then launched a powerful attack, creating a violent storm of wind that surged toward her. However, the Bloody Empress raised her guard, effortlessly blocking the assault with practiced ease, revealing her formidable defensive skills. Meanwhile, Woo Mun was on a rampage, cutting down enemy soldiers one after another. One panicked soldier cried out, "It's Wind Fury! Stop him!" But before they could react, Woo Mun swiftly turned and struck the soldier down with a single palm strike. Two more soldiers charged at Woo Mun, one shouting in disbelief, "What the? This brat is strong," and the other yelling, "Hurry up and kill him." Using his footwork technique, Woo Mun vanished before their eyes, leaving the soldiers confused and disoriented. "Where is he?" they stammered in fear. In a blur of motion, Woo Mun reappeared behind the two soldiers and, with precise sword strikes, cut them both down instantly. Their bodies crumpled to the ground. Woo Mun thought to himself, Divine Mirage Steps is really effective, before continuing his relentless assault, showing no mercy as he pressed forward against the attackers. On a nearby hill, two shadowy figures in dark outfits watched the chaos unfolding below. The first figure, wearing a long hat, asked, "Who is that boy?" The second figure, donning a samurai hat, responded, "I thought the only concern besides the Palm Emperor was Sung Woo Kong. So, who the hell is he?" Back on the battlefield, Woo Kong arrived at Woo Mun's side. The two brothers instinctively positioned themselves back to back, ready to fight together. Woo Kong remarked, "Bro, I was busy taking care of the left." Their appearance reinvigorated the porters, who began to shout, "Plum Blossom Swordsman Sung Woo Kong is here. We're saved." Yun Si Hyun, watching from a distance, thought, "There's hope. I always knew Master Kong was strong, but I never expected Sung Woo Mun to be this powerful." The brothers fought in perfect synchronization, each cutting down enemies with precise, coordinated strikes. Woo Kong, however, grew uneasy as he assessed the situation. He thought, "Who are these people? They're all at least second-tier martial artists, and there are over 100 of them. I can't handle those two watching from the hill either. The Bloody Cloud Empress usually works alone, so why does she have such a large group? Could they be the Black Bull Gang or the Dark Horse martial sect in disguise?" He then glanced at Woo Mun in surprise, noticing how effortlessly his brother was dispatching foes. In the time Woo Kong had cut down 3 men, Woo Mun had already taken out 5. His movements are so fluid. Is this really my brother? Woo Kong thought, his resolve hardening. "I can't lose. I'm the Plum Blossom Swordsman." He summoned his technique and began striking down enemies, his sword leaving a trail of blood that blossomed like flowers in his wake. Woo Mun, fighting alongside his brother, admired Wu Kang's growth. He's really become an incredible fighter. I can't lose as his older brother, Woo Mun thought as he unleashed a barrage of techniques, including Divine Mirage Steps, Wind Fury Strike, and Northern Ice Storm. His flurry of attacks tore through the enemy ranks. The remaining soldiers, overwhelmed, muttered in disbelief. How is he able to create such wind fury? His swordsmanship is too good. Despite his success, Woo Mun felt uneasy, thinking, there are still too many. I need a plan. He recalled a technique used by Gwiang Chami against Baek Sangun and thought, that's it. Using wind fury repeatedly, he corralled the soldiers into a tight group. With a confident smile, he leapt into the air and unleashed a devastating cloudburst technique. His sword rained destruction upon the clustered soldiers, who collapsed in unison. As he looked at his weapon, Woo Mun thought, combining Gwiang Chami's spear key with the rainstorm technique from the Sansu-hwa painting is incredibly effective against large groups. With his new strategy, Woo Mun had turned the tide, taking down the majority of the enemy soldiers. On the hill, the long-hatted figure observed the massacre below and remarked, 30 men eliminated at once. We can't just sit back anymore. The two shadowy figures then descended to the battlefield. The samurai-hatted man barked at the soldiers, commanding, stand back. We'll handle this ourselves. Woo Mun and Wu Kong immediately turned to face them, prepared for the next challenge. Woo Mun muttered under his breath, they're here. The samurai-hatted figure rushed forward with a sneer, saying, you must be the idiotic grandson of the Palm Emperor. Strange, I heard you weren't much of a fighter. Woo Mun parried his attack with ease and replied, what do you know about me? Meanwhile, the long-hatted figure engaged Wu Kong, testing his blade with a series of quick strikes. He smirked and said, Sung Wu Kong, the plum blossom swordsman. Impressive, but playtime's over. As the battle began to intensify, Woo Mun retorted to his opponent, you're noisy. I don't know how you know about me, but I'm not an idiot anymore, and I won't lose to trash like you. The samurai-hatted figure sneered in response, trash? You dare provoke Yu Myong-su? Woo Mun smirked, taunting, so they give names to garbage now? Stop talking and come at me, fool. Hearing the name, Yu Myong-su, Wu Kang's expression grew grave as he recognized the notorious name. Yu Myong-su? One of Yunan's evil three, he thought. I suspected they weren't ordinary, but why is he here? Now enraged, Yu Myong-su unleashed his dark ki, summoning multiple spectral blades. Charging at Woo Mun with a roar, he yelled, you dare call me trash? You're dead. As Yu Myong-su unleashed a barrage of spectral blades, Woo Mun reacted quickly, tightening his grip on his sword and deflecting the incoming strikes with precise movements. Recognizing the danger, Woo Mun deduced, he's using a shapeless blade technique. He decided to respond in kind and gathered his ki, launching a sword aura attack that struck Yu Myong-su's shoulder. The impact caused Yu Myong-su to wince in pain, his fury mounting as he demanded, a moving sword aura? Where did you learn such a technique? Who are you, you damn freak? Ignoring the taunt, Woo Mun charged forward, shouting, shut it, I'm just getting started. As he closed the distance, Yu Myong-su hesitated, confused by the slowing of Woo Mun's sword technique. Before he could analyze the situation, Woo Mun struck rapidly, overwhelming him with a series of precise attacks. Realizing the threat Woo Mun posed, Yu Myong-su decided to end the fight with one decisive blow. He activated his dark demonic sword style, summoning several dark ki blades and sending them toward Woo Mun. The attack struck its target, and Yu Myong-su smirked triumphantly, declaring, I got him. However, to his shock, the figure he hit vanished. Woo Mun had used an afterimage technique. Appearing behind Yu Myong-su in a flash, Woo Mun landed a devastating sword strike, and the opponent collapsed lifelessly to the ground. Taking a deep breath after his victory, Woo Mun thought, I did it. Meanwhile, Wu Kong had defeated his own opponent, the long-hatted figure, though he had sustained several minor wounds and was panting heavily. When Woo Mun approached him, concerned, he asked, you okay? I'm fine, Wu Kong replied, though his mind was in turmoil. Impossible, he thought. My brother is stronger than me, and by a huge margin. Isn't he basically at the level of a legend now? Before he could reflect further, Woo Mun urged, there's still more of them left. Let's go, Wu Kong, and sprinted off, eager to continue the fight. As the brothers advanced, a soldier suddenly shouted, stop, drop your weapons. They turned to find one soldier holding a blade to Yun Si-hyen's neck and another threatening Zhou Mu-jae with the same tactic. The soldier demanded. Drop them now if you don't want this woman to die. Woo Mun's expression hardened with anger. How dirty? Torn Woo Kong suggested. Let's do as they say for now, bro. The soldier smirked, sensing an opportunity. Looks like the younger brother is smarter. Good thinking. But Woo Mun shook his head in disbelief. Wait, do you think they'd spare the convoy even if we surrendered? If we're captured, they could use us as hostages too. Woo Kong hesitated, realizing Woo Mun had a point. True. I was too quick to jump to conclusions. If we're caught, the Palm Emperor, our grandfather, will be threatened. Woo Mun's voice was firm as he concluded. We can't do as they say, no matter what. But we don't have any other option, Woo Kong countered, still unsure. Just then, Baek Sangun appeared on the scene, laughing. Worrying over such trivial matters. Are we? Before the soldiers could react, Baek Sangun conjured multiple sharp key daggers and swiftly eliminated all the enemies, leaving no one standing. Grandfather, you're back! Woo Mun and Woo Kong exclaimed, relieved. Baek Sangun smirked, unfazed. If they knew even a little about me, they wouldn't have dared to use hostages against me. Yun Si-hyun, awestruck by Baek Sangun's power, murmured, This is the strength of the Palm Emperor. Jo Mu-jae added in astonishment. Even warriors of high caliber are like weaklings before him. Still in disbelief, Woo Mun and Woo Kong asked in unison, Grandfather, did you already defeat the Bloody Cloud Empress? Baek Sangun began explaining the outcome of his earlier battle with the Bloody Empress. He had recognized her skill and had been impressed that she managed to keep up with him for as long as she did. However, during their fight, the Bloody Empress mocked him, suggesting he was bluffing to cover his fear. She then threatened to rip his soul away, causing Baek Sangun to feel an intense bloodlust like never before. As the Bloody Empress lunged toward him, shouting, Die Palm Emperor, Woo Mun's earlier attack on her reopened a wound, causing blood to spill. Both combatants paused, bewildered by the sudden setback. The Bloody Empress muttered in disbelief, realizing that Woo Mun's attack had caused this unexpected injury. Baek Sangun seized the opportunity, laughing and preparing for a powerful final attack. But the Bloody Empress, cursing under her breath, gathered her strength and hatred for Woo Mun. Back in the present, Woo Kong asked Baek Sangun if Woo Mun's attack had made a difference. Baek Sangun confirmed it had. Woo Mun's blade aura, though not a serious wound, had subtly disrupted the Bloody Empress's inner aura, giving Baek Sangun the upper hand. Curious, Woo Mun then asked if the Bloody Empress was dead and about the soul she had taken. Baek Sangun's expression darkened as he replied, Unfortunately, I didn't manage to kill her. That cunning woman is good at running away. Meanwhile, the Bloody Empress, now retreating through the forest, cursed Baek Sangun and Woo Mun. She swore vengeance, vowing to kill them both. We got plenty more where that came from. Hit the subscribe button and stay tuned for even more amazing content.